the gust.
And that's frightening to think about, because a tornado will take a swath where it goes. It can jump from house to house. One house can be fine, the next house can be obliterated. With sustained winds in a large eye like this, it could wipe out everything.
Yeah, and it really could. And this afternoon, when they issue that extreme wind warning, they're going to issue it. It's going to make a lot of phones go off. I'm not sure how far north it's going to go. They just put out we always have a chat with the National Weather Service, and they're talking to us right now. They said it's going to go across the area. Your telephone is going to make that noise it makes when you get a tornado warning, and that is your signal to go in. You got to get to somewhere safe. You got to be in a sturdy structure. If you live in a mobile home down in the Bayou parishes or anywhere down there, let me rephrase this. If you live in a mobile home anywhere in South Louisiana, Southeast Louisiana, North Shore or South Shore, you do not need to be in it. That will roll. Those things will easily roll in 100-mile-per-hour winds. So this is your last warning, especially for our friends on the North Shore as these strong winds move in. If you're in a mobile home, you can't ride it out in one of those, as it's just simply not safe.
And Peyton, I'm sorry. When do you think the Homa and Terrebonne and Lafourche will start feeling those above 50, 60, 70-mile-an-hour winds?
They're within the next probably couple of hours. It's going to really go downhill down there. We are gusting to 52 at Grand Isle right now. We're gusting to 114 over on one of our sites out in the Gulf of Mexico. That's a little elevated. Sustained at 105. The Homa area, of course, our site in Homa isn't reporting right now. Thibodaux's gusting only to 19, but I think within the next couple of hours, we're going to start to see those winds really start to increase in the bayou parishes and along our coast. And then as we go into this afternoon, it's going to be creeping up through the river, the parishes, the metro, and to the North Shore. So, Sheba had a question. I don't know if you're.
I don't think.
There
okay.
you are.
Hey, do the increasing winds have any impact on the tornado risk?
So, interesting enough, tornadoes aren't super common near the center of a hurricane. There's been studies done on this, and usually when people, because everyone always like, we got hit by a tornado in the eye of the storm. What it probably was, there's these mesovortices that rotate around these intense hurricanes, and as they swing on through, it can almost be like a burst of wind that's like a tornado, and you should treat it like a tornado. So overall, I want you to think, you're safe from the wind because there's not going to probably be tornadoes, but there are still going to be the destructive winds wrapping around that eye, and a lot of people do think they're tornadoes, and they can create the same damage as tornadoes. But there's studies that show we usually don't get tornadoes in the eye wall itself.
Okay, and then Jade has a great question, and her mic is not open right now, so I'll ask it for her. But she was saying that Zeta made landfall, we thought, as a Category 2. Of course, after they looked at everything, it was upgraded to a 3. Is that something we could possibly see here since this is so close to a 5?
Yeah, this could make landfall as a 155 storm, and then, they go back and do these reanalysis, and they may find there was damage or something that indicates it was a Cat 5. They upgrade it. There's also instances where they will downgrade storms. That is certainly
Good morning
before.
and happy Sunday to
That's
you.
one of
You're
those
taking
things
a
that
live
will
look in
happen
downtown
far
Dallas. A
from
little
now.
more cloud cover
And to
out
put
there
this in
this morning as we
perspective, for
start
anyone
off
who
the
rode
day.
out Zeta
Temperatures
down in
sitting at about
Corfu,
77
Cocodrie,
degrees, so a bit
down
on the
here
warm and
along the
muggy
lower
side, but perfect to
bayou
get out
parishes,
now.
it
And
was
then in the next
significant,
couple of
right?
hours
Winds were
to
115
go for a
miles
walk,
an
for a
hour.
jog, grab a leash,
This is
take
going
the
to
dog with
be
you. Temperatures will quickly warm up though as we go through the day today. Here's a look at the hour by hour. By 9 o'clock, 80 degrees. By 11 o'clock, 83. Topping out today right around 92 degrees. It will feel up to 100 degrees for some locations throughout the day today. Temperatures will fall later on in the evening, staying in the 80s. It'll be another warm and muggy night on tap across North
There's a lot of
Texas.
people,
And we will start off the
not in the bayou
week in
areas,
the
but there's a lot of
mid-90s,
people
but
in New
we'll
Orleans
quickly
just
heat
driving
up.
around.
Looks like the extended
When is it
forecast
going to
is going
be
to
so
be
dangerous
hot
to drive
and
a car?
dry all the way
we
through
just
the
saw
first
Meg's
week of
live shot,
September.
and some of those
Look at
wind
that,
gusts
and
were
Labor
pretty
Day.
strong.
Yeah.
We
On the
are
brink of
starting to see
100.
those wind gusts.
Hopefully we'll be right back. It takes a second to get there. We're going to take a break and regroup for our 7:30 half hour. So we'll be right back. Hopefully we'll be right back. It takes a second to get there.
No.
Oh, okay, good. Good morning once again. It's now 7.
That's right. Good morning, Eric, Leslie, and Sheba. And good morning, everybody. So here's what you need to know. Heath Jones with the U.S. Corps of Engineers joined us on the show a short time ago and said the levees in the Houma and Terrebonne Parish area may have some problems with Hurricane Ida. He also said the levees in the New Orleans metro area are better prepared to take on the strength of this storm. Both CLECO and Entergy customers are starting to lose their power. CLECO is reporting more than 5,000 customers are without power in the Slidell area. Another 140 are impacted in the Covington area. Heath Jones with the U.S. Corps of Engineers joined us on the show a short time ago and said the Louisiana as well. According to Entergy's website, more than 6,000 customers are now without power. Said the levees in the New Orleans metro area are better prepared to take on the strength of this storm. Both CLECO and Entergy customers are starting to lose their power. The St. Tammany Parish Sheriff's Office wants all residents to know the entire area will be severely affected by Hurricane Ida. 140 are impacted in the Covington area. And Entergy power outages have started to increase across southeast Louisiana as well. According to Entergy's website, more than 6,000 customers. For the deputies to get back out, they say they will begin responding to those in need of help. Remember, you can get more updates along with live interactive radar on our WWL TV app. Just search WWL TV. It's in your app store and it is free.
Jade, thank you very much. And now we want to head out to St. Bernard where Duke Carter is. And guys, they're expecting storm surge 8 to 12 feet, and it could be worse by the time it gets here.
Hey, good morning, Leslie. Yeah, we are here in St. Bernard Parish again, just monitoring those conditions. And pretty much it was a clear for a quick second, maybe for about a good 30 or so minutes where it was just easy breezy. But then we're starting to get the rain out here. But I kind of do want to bring your attention to what we're seeing over here. Pretty much we're starting to see, well, some businesses take precaution by making sure that businesses were boarded up. And so we've seen this business board up, especially a few others here along East Judge Perez Drive here in St. Bernard Parish, here specifically in Chalmette. And so we did speak with Guy McGinnis, Parish President Guy McGinnis, again, making sure that people did take precaution. Again, earlier this morning, we were at the levee wall, I should say, pretty much the wall that protects everyone within this part of St. Bernard Parish. And Guy McGinnis said they're keeping contact with those folks who are outside the levee protection system just to make sure that they are safe. Now, we did catch up with him this morning, again, about people taking heed to the warnings about how serious Hurricane Ida is. Take a listen to what he had to say.
You know, you ride around a little bit. There's nobody on the streets. A lot of our businesses are closed. So we're ready for it. And we're ready to get back to work after the storm comes through. So we have crews ready to clean the roads, the debris, and open these roads so people can get back to life as soon as possible.
And hopefully people can get back as long as there's not significant damage here in St. Bernard Parish. Guy McGinnis and I, Parish President Guy McGinnis and I, also continue that conversation. And in part, if there's not significant damage, he does plan to send some of his emergency operation crews over to those harder hit areas like Terrebonne and Lafourche parishes, just to make sure those guys can at least get the help that they need, because we know how significant that area may be impacted. And so again, over here in St. Bernard Parish on East Judge Perez Drive, again, just some folks taking heed, making sure they're protecting their belongings. You can see some of those businesses boarded up. We did try to catch with some people out and about this morning, getting out their house, walking around. We just saw one person walk their dog, but they ran inside as soon as they experienced some of the heavy rains. And that's been the entire case throughout this morning when we arrived here in St. Bernard Parish around maybe 1:30, 2 o'clock, is the fact that you may get that heavy downpour. It'll stop. You get the heavy winds gusting a little bit with the rain, feels like needles in your back. And so again, we're just monitoring the conditions. Good news is that power is still on here in St. Bernard Parish, at least where we are here on East Judge Perez Drive. So we're just driving around, seeing what the conditions are like. If anything does change, we'll let you know. For now, though, reporting, Duke Carter, Eyewitness News.
We definitely noticed those winds ramping up. Stay safe out there, Duke. We'll check back in with you in just a bit. We were telling you guys about some power outages we're already seeing across the state. We just learned power outages are already happening in Grand Isle. Let's get straight over to Councilmember Ricky Templet, who's joining us by phone on the conditions there. Ricky, are you with us?
Yeah, I'm here, and good morning.
Good morning. And what's happening over there now?
Well, you know, you have the speeder bands coming in off the storm right now. Ida's already affecting Grand Isle. You know, you're feeling about 50 to 75 mile an hour gusts through the speeder bands. You have water crossing Highway 1 from the Bay side currently, as well as you know, the tide is rising on the Gulf side pretty rapidly as we speak.
And are you there right now, Ricky?
No, actually, I am not. I'm in the Kenner area right now.
Okay.
Evaluating a couple of things along the lakefront here, and I've been in communications with Mayor Commodell directly. I was just on the phone with him, and I think we sent you some live video from some cameras we have live on Grand Isle. As long as Grand Isle has experienced some power outages, but the whole island's not out yet.
Okay. And what did Mayor Commodell have to say? What was kind of his tone at this point? We've been getting these updates on the storm, and it's just looking worse and worse.
Well, you know, it keeps taking that little bit of a jog to the east that keeps it putting it closer to the island itself. Crossing right there by Lafourche, they're going to take the brunt of this storm. So they're hunkered down. There's probably still about 50 people on the island.
Right.
You know, six are probably firemen, probably another, 10 that are police officers and some other residents. They're all just hunkered down, and they at this point they have no choice. They're going to have to ride this situation out and pray for the best.
Yeah, I asked you about outages. We actually have that Entergy outage map now, and it does kind of look like all of Grand Isle, most of it at least, is without power.
Right.
Yeah, and that's happening quickly. You said we're already seeing wind gusts of 50 to 70 miles per hour.
Yes, ma'am, definitely.
And what about those folks who did stay behind? What are options for them when this storm really rolls through? Because it's not looking good, and we're not even, we're still several hours away from landfall.
Well, you really don't have any options. They have to hunker down where they are. I mean, Highway 1 is, I haven't seen it myself, is probably already underwater, so
right.
There's no way to evacuate or leave. You have to find a higher structure that can withstand the hurricane force winds. You're talking now possibly 140 mile an hour winds pounding Grand Isle and the structures that are there. That's why we ask for a mandatory evacuation, because life's more important than property.
Definitely. And of course, as you said, most people heeded that evacuation and left. You still have some folks there. And Peyton was just talking about this area, saying now we're seeing 50 to 70 miles per hour winds. You just mentioned that's going to get up to almost 140 miles per hour. What do you imagine is going to be the devastation there?
Well, I would kind of say probably catastrophic. We'd have to look, and every storm's different, and everybody can give us stories. We've lived through them all.
Right.
What each storm has done over time. It depends on how the storm comes in, where it exits at, how much water it shoves. Zeta went through there last year, late October. They categorized it later as a Category 3 storm. We clocked on some vessels winds of 120 miles an hour. So some of those structures withstood that. The problem is that this storm keeps jogging a little bit closer to the island, where the high winds could be pounding it.
Yeah, and I guess that is encouraging to know that some of those structures were able to withstand those 120 mile per hour winds. But then you just never know. As you said, every storm is different. We have, of course, always been comparing these to other storms just to try to give people a sense of what's going to happen here. Does this remind you of another storm? I know you mentioned Zeta there. Any others?
Well, no. I mean, look, Zeta was one of the ones I've lived through as far as the highest winds that I can remember that hit the island. This is truly going to be a true test of the Burrito Levee and the improvements of the rock jetties on the island, on the bay side as well as on the Gulf side.
Yeah, and are you confident that those are going to help here?
You and I will find out tomorrow morning.
And look, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you for a second. We were pulling up this video. This is the video you were telling me you sent over. So just kind of tell us what you sent over. Describe it a little bit. We're definitely seeing those wind gusts. Again, guys, 50 to 70 miles per hour already in Grand Isle.
Yes, I'm not sure what video you have tuned up right now, but I sent you 2 or 3. One showing the bay side where the water is already crossing Highway 1, and that's about 2.5 miles. That camera is about 2.5 miles from the bridge in Bridgeside, going into the island. The other video we sent you is showing the Gulf of Mexico, which is getting very angry and rising rapidly.
Yeah, and Peyton just told us that those wind gusts there are coming in at 53 miles per hour. And you can definitely see it just looking at this video, seeing the trees already blowing in the wind. It's hard to imagine that the storm is this far and this is what we're already seeing over there.
And look, those winds are now coming out of the northeast, so that's shoving the water up into the bay and into the island.
Yeah, and you mentioned that some of those structures withheld 120 miles per hour winds in past storms. The issue here is going to be those power outages, which we're already seeing all across Grand Isle, and how long it will take for that to be restored. We have to wait for the storm to pass, and of course there's going to be other devastation.
And that's one of the major issues, and you're talking about last time with Zeta, which came across the lower part of the state and the parish, where we had Grand Isle was out of power for at least 3 weeks minimum. But now you're talking about a storm that's going across basically the Grand Isle area, going up to Baton Rouge, Thibodaux, and all those areas that are going to have catastrophic effects that actually are going to make getting power back in those low-lying areas even longer and harder to get. So that's going to be an issue is recovery. And actually, Jefferson Parish now, we already have teams in place for lower Jefferson Parish to do search and rescue, too.
And we've been so focused on the wind because that's the major impacts you guys are seeing right now. But that storm surge, just frightening numbers we're seeing there in the teens, 15 feet possibly coming you guys' way.
And that's right. That's why I said that Burrito Levee is going to get a true test like it's never had before.
Definitely. All right, well, please keep us updated, guys. As you see there, Grand Isle already without power this morning. They are seeing wind gusts of up to 53 miles per hour. Ricky Template, please keep sending in pictures and video as you get them to us, and we'll check back in just a bit.
And thank you for keeping our viewers informed.
Of course. Stay safe. Thank you. Eric?
All right, we do want to go kind of parish by parish with Peyton, looking at the possibilities of the effects of this storm, and we're starting on the North Shore.
Yeah, let's start on the North Shore, and the North Shore will be the last people to really get on the most intense part, Eric. So by this afternoon and this evening, it'll start to go downhill out here, and the further west you go, the closer you get to the eye, the worse it's going to get. So right now, here's what we're thinking. On average, 70 to 80 mile per hour sustained winds, but you'll have gusts perhaps up to 90 to 110, and that 110 would be more likely in Tangipahoa Parish, into Livingston Parish, and close to the lake. Now, as you get into St. Tammany, as you go to Madisonville, Covington, Slidell, all the way up through Folsom, you name it, anywhere in St. Tammany, you could certainly see wind gusts 90 approaching 100 miles per hour. That will be later this evening into parts of tonight. So most of this is going to happen after dark on the North Shore. It'll start this afternoon, but the worst of it will continue until after dark and towards midnight. For Washington Parish, your winds could definitely still gust 70, 80 miles an hour. I think there'll be a little bit less up here, but certainly we got a lot of tall trees up here. If you live in a house that's next to a tall tree, think about where you would go just in case if a tree were to fall. Where would it fall, or where would it, if it fell, where could you be safe in your home if it did fall on your home? So you got to keep that in mind. Other big problem on the North Shore is going to be for flooding from rain. We're going to see on average 10 inches. A few places could see more. Our rivers are going to have to be watched very closely. So if you live next to a river in a flood-prone area, you need to be planning for flooding there. And of course on the lakefront, 5 to 8 feet, 5 to 8 feet is what we're going with now for Lake Pontchartrain. And the surge will be worse down here later tonight going into tomorrow as we have that strong southerly wind still pulling up into the center of that storm. So the winds this afternoon are going to be more out of the west here, or to the west here, out of the east. But as we go into tonight, they'll be more out of the south. Eric, that's for the North Shore.
And if we can, before we leave the North Shore, the reason they'll be seeing that storm surge, that water, and we won't so much on the South Shore, is that water will be pounding in from the Wrigley's into the lake and putting it up toward the North Shore.
Right, like let me move this a little bit. The water's coming in the Wrigley's and into the lake today. By tonight, though, this storm, as the storm travels to the north, the winds will start to transition out of the south later today as they wrap up into it. So it'll be more of a westerly wind and then an easterly or a southerly wind by tonight.
Okay. All right, let's hit the South Shore now.
Let's hit in the New Orleans Metro here. So whenever we say the New Orleans Metro, think of everywhere in the Metro. Kenner, Metairie, all the West Bank, inside the levees, New Orleans East, you name it, Chalmette, this is the New Orleans Metro. We have the potential to see some really strong winds here across the area. Could see some winds, and let me break this down because this is going to get tricky here in the Metro. The west side of the Metro, Kenner, going into St. Charles Parish. You could definitely see winds approaching 100 miles per hour with gusts over 120. That is a definite possibility, and that would happen. The winds are going to start to pick up in the next couple of hours and will be to hurricane force probably by lunchtime, and then they'll get really bad throughout the rest of the afternoon. That's the timeline at least. Now, as you're in the east, you're going to be further away from the eye. You're probably going to miss out on the worst winds out here, but it's still possible that you see winds 80, 90 miles per hour out in the east. Down on the West Bank, same story. The further west you go, Westwego, Wagaman, more intense winds. The closer you are to Araby and going into Algiers, you're probably not going to see the intensive winds as what they see out here, but still, you could approach 100 miles per hour. The storm surge, of course, outside the levees on the lakefront, we'll see flooding there on Lake Shore, 5 to 8 feet, 7 to 11 feet for those that live outside the levee out towards Venetian Isles, and once you get on 90 out there, Eric. So that area is already likely seeing water rise, and it could get up that should actually say 8 to 12 feet. We've updated that at this point.
Yeah, whenever there's a southeast wind coming into the Wrigley's, Venetian Isles, all those camps out there, Lake Catherine, they all flood.
Yeah, they do. And so this will be significant rise of water, so that should be 8 to 12 feet. On the west, or on lower Jefferson here, so once you get outside the levees, Jean Lafitte, Crown Point, they're going to see the more significant storm surge, perhaps, of 12 to 16 feet, Eric.
And rain is going to be a big problem for all of us. You're saying the entire metro area is going to be a problem. So the places that flood, I mean, they're going to flood.
They are. And, you know, here in the metro, on average, we're still going 7 to 10, but there's been some indications that it could be closer to 15 inches, and that's going to cause big problems. And you just hope that isn't the entire metro because, you know, the pumps are having to all pump out everything.
Yeah.
So any flooding we see in the city, and I think this is going to scare people because you're going to see a lot of rainfall come down later this afternoon into tonight. And it's going to look like water is rising in the streets. It's not from the levees. It's not storm surge coming in.
No.
We're not expecting that. And we've talked about that all morning because a lot of people are concerned about that, rightfully so. But it will be water from the rainfall and the pumps trying to keep up with it.
And this time we do not have that north wind pounding it toward the south shore.
Yep.
And even if it were, we still have those 3 outfall canals with those massive floodgates, so that's going to protect. The problem with getting that much rain in this amount of time, there's no way we can pump that kind of water out.
You're exactly right. And so that's our big concern. The reason the surge doesn't look like a big deal for New Orleans, it's this. So a lot of people are wondering about Katrina. Obviously, it's the anniversary today. The reason that was such a problem, Katrina went to our west. It made landfall in Hancock County near the Pearl River. And the winds on the west side of that storm would have been coming down. It's not going to let me draw on it, but it would have been coming down like this. So they were pounding into the city.
Yeah.
Now, what's going to happen today, it's on this side of us. So the winds are going to be the complete opposite. They'll be out of the south for the most part today. So our winds will be rushing out to the lake and pushing it up to the North Shore.
The North Shore, so
the
they're
North
going to get it,
Shore, yeah, the North Shore is more concerned about that push.
And then let's do, we're going to the river parishes now?
Yeah, I've gotten some messages about the river parishes. The river parishes could see some significant effects as well as that eye travels somewhere in the vicinity of here. So winds out in this area will start increasing later this morning. The worst will be this afternoon into this evening and even going into tonight. This is not going to be a quick event for anyone. It's going to last over 12 hours for some people. So 5 to 10 inches of rain, but look at this. Winds 110 to 130 with some gusts over 120 to 130 as well. So you're looking at some significant wind gusts possible through the river parishes, and especially as you travel closer and closer to that eye. So in St. Charles, St. John, LaPlace, Reserve, Lutcher, Vacherie, heading up towards Assumption and Ascension Parish, you could see wind gusts of 120 plus miles per hour, and that's a big concern. The storm surge will have to be watched. Right now we're thinking Lake Maurepas is about 4 to 6 feet, Lake Pontchartrain 5 to 8 feet, but as I mentioned, through today it's going to be more of a southeasterly kind of pushing into St. John there, so that's why we could see a lot of that flooding near I-10 that we normally see when we have a strong wind pushing water into St. John Parish, Eric. So that's
and in St. John, they've got some levee projects on the board. They're just not there yet.
Yeah, they need to be there. That will be good, but that's what we're watching with the storm surge potential into the river parishes.
And if I can ask you, since we're talking about all these parishes by parishes in the viewing area, if we keep on this track, is there any way to put like a wind gauge out to where, or a wind scenario out to where the most intense, how intense, and then as it goes out, what it'll be like?
You're going to have to rephrase it. I'm not sure. I was trying to understand and read a National Hurricane Center tweet at the same time.
And sometimes I explain things really weird.
Yeah.
In the center of the storm, we know that wind is going to be sustained at 150 miles an hour.
On the eye wall.
On the eye wall.
Yeah, the center
as
will,
it drops down.
Yeah.
And then as we get, because any place west, like Lutcher, Reserve, Booty, Destrehan, even Jefferson Parish, they're closer to that eye than here in the city.
They are. I wish I had one more detail on this graphic to help show it and divide it a little bit better, but all the areas in white could see 100+ mile per hour wind gusts. That kind of think that breaks it down and helps you understand that if you were in the white here, it is reasonable that you see over 100 miles per hour. Now, there are going to be some down towards Thibodeau and Houma, especially that I think will be closer to 120 and 130, maybe a little higher to 140 as you get closer, and then 160 to 180 to even up towards 200 miles per hour near that eye and landfall. So that's where the worst will be.
And you're saying even as far as Slidell, that wind could be that strong?
A gust, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, a gust. Now,
what about sustained winds?
Sustained will be closer to the 80 to maybe 90 mile per hour as you get closer to the metro, we think. So the western side of the metro has a greater chance of seeing the 90 to 80 to 90, and then I think it'll start to decrease to maybe 60 or 70 to 60 as you get into the east here.
Well, that's still got the potential of downing trees, things like that.
Yeah, it's such a that's such a fine detail too, by the way, because of the track, and you hope you don't hope it takes this track, but this is currently based on that track.
And what's the next big update we're waiting for, the one that will be more definitive or the most definitive for you? Do we have to wait till 10 or will it be earlier?
No, we're just getting them every hour now, Eric, so we are fortunately getting that, and then once it makes landfall, we will stop getting the
Yeah, so we're about 7 minutes away from the next update, unless it comes in a little early.
And I do want to mention, they did issue that extreme wind warning just now. And let me get into this, because a lot of people, for anyone who did end up staying down there in Lafourche and Terrebonne parishes, your phones are going to go off. And the reason they issued this is because they want you to take shelter from this hurricane moving on in. You need to treat this as a tornado warning. So it does include right on the outskirts of the New Orleans metro here for that extreme wind warning. Winds over 115 miles per hour are expected soon. That will happen more so as we go into the next couple of hours down along the coast, and then it will spread up over the area. So you see this purple box here, Eric?
Yeah.
That's where we're most likely to see the worst winds as we go into...
Well, at 7:35, my friend at home had texted me right now the wind was about 15 miles an hour. That's going to change.
You said 15?
15 miles an hour. That was at 7:30, 7:26.
Yeah, I mean, just off the mouth of the river, I was talking about this earlier, we're gusting to... we were gusting over 120 when the last time I checked, and I can imagine it's getting worse. That's not right. I bet that station went down. 114 mile per hour gust here at Southwest Pass, sustained at 105. We're now gusting to nearly 60 in Grand Isle. We're gusting to 40 at the lakefront. Look at Shell Beach gusting to 51. Gulfport's even gusting to 46. So the winds will continue to really pick up in this corridor right here, and that's where we have that extreme wind warning. So if you're down there, go to your safe spot, just like you treat this just like a tornado warning. Just make sure you are above an elevation to where you were safe from storm surge. So say run from the water, hide from the wind.
But again, that wind alert is for?
Well, it's for a zone, so it kind of includes different areas here, but it does include just outside of the metro. So as you get towards the West Bank and down towards Jean Lafitte, I got to pull it back up really quick.
While you're doing that, and we are talking about wind, let me read this real quick on talking about some power outages we have in our area. Right now, more than 10,000 Entergy customers are without power. Plaquemines Parish has the most, with more than 4,300 outages. We spoke to Plaquemines Parish earlier about what the storm surge means to residents there and how emergency responders are preparing to help those who stayed behind.
Down from from Oakville Floodgate south to the Alliance Refinery, that levee system is a 7 to 11 foot height levee.
Yeah.
That's why we issued that mandatory evacuation on Friday afternoon. And then from Alliance to West Point Lahash, this is Highway 23. We're always talking about this. That levee system is 3 to 6 feet. And we're going to get some serious overtop, and that's that Myrtle Grove area, the Alliance area, Point Celeste area. So there's going to be flooding down there, and it's going to, cut the northern end from the southern end of the parish. So any resident that's down there, they're going to be stuck for a good while.
And quickly, do you have any idea just how many people actually evacuated, how many people are still down there, or you just don't know?
There's some people down there. I haven't talked to the sheriff's office. They've been down there all night just to get an idea who's still moving around and stuff. But I would say there's still going to be a handful or so of people that decide to just ride it out down there. Unfortunately, we have our boats ready to go whenever once everything calms down. We're familiar with it. Hurricane Katrina, we did boat rescues down in the southern part of the parish and also on the east bank. And Hurricane Isaac, they issued a mandatory evacuation for the east bank of the parish, and they had 600 rescues that they did at that time. People didn't heed the warning, and we had to find shelter for here in Bellchase for those 600 residents. And unfortunately, we had 2 deaths in Hurricane Isaac due to the storm surge, flooding and stuff. And then Hurricane Katrina, we had it was just under, I think, 10 deaths or so for residents that stayed for Katrina. So hopefully people listen to us. We've been telling them, but now's the time. Here it is.
It is awful, and it's only going to get worse as the day goes on.
Yeah.
We do want to get to Asha, who is she's in Lafitte right now, right?
Yeah,
Staples.
let's check in on her.
Hey, good morning, guys. Luckily, we've been pretty good weather-wise here. We've kind of dodged a lot of the rain. We've seen pockets of heavy showers, and then it'll clear up. What we're seeing right now that we haven't really experienced this morning since we started our shift at around 1 o'clock this morning is the heavy winds. The wind is definitely picking up. We're kind of using the trees as indicators and this American flag as an indicator of exactly how hard the wind is going down. It's beating us pretty good, so I can't even imagine how it's going to get even worse as the morning continues. But it's been pretty quiet here in Lafitte. The roads are pretty much clear. They do have some law enforcement officers that are driving around just kind of monitoring the situation. There has been some debris, kind of, I'll say garbage cans, I guess. That's what we've been seeing. Some people left their stuff out in the street. So if you do have anything that's loose on your property that you can go ahead and bring back into your home or your garage or anything like that, you just don't want anything in the roadways if people are happening to be out and about. But hopefully you are in your safe space, hunkering down. We did just get that that wind notice that Peyton was talking about. This area, I guess we're in the cone of that heavy wind that's happening right now. So hopefully you are in your safe spot. Treat this as a tornado, as we've been talking about this morning. But we're kind of just waiting and watching and seeing what exactly this storm's going to bring our way. Again, it's been pretty dry for the most part here, but that wind is certainly picking up. So we'll check back in with you guys if things happen to change in the next couple of minutes. But for now, reporting live in Lafitte, Asha Staples, Eyewitness News.
And Asha, this is Eric. Can you hear me? You were talking about getting to a safe zone. You probably need to get to one. Peyton is saying the wind down there could get to 100, 115 mile an hour or more sustained.
Yeah, that's right. So right now we're at City Hall. We feel pretty safe. Like I said, nothing is too bad right now, especially there's no rain, a little bit of a light mist, but the wind is definitely picking up. Once we start seeing things turn a little bit worse, we'll probably try to get to a safe spot and try to reroute ourselves with the direction of our crews.
And what's the feeling from folks you've talked to, if you've talked to anybody down there, what's the feeling they have down there?
Well, it's been kind of a ghost town. We haven't had a chance to speak with anyone. We've made some calls to officials, but we can imagine they're super busy this morning with trying to make sure they have their ducks in a row. But it seems like everyone that we've kind of seen, as they're driving past, they seem to be kind of going about their morning. They may be trying to check out some last-minute places that may be open for food or even gas or something like that. But nothing that seems to be frantic in this area. So all good for right now, Eric.
Well, you can see by the trees in your hair that the wind is blowing behind you, and it's only going to get worse. All right, Asha, thank you very much.
Yeah.
All right, we're talking about that extreme wind warning that has been issued. I do want to kind of draw a line on here and get you an estimate on when these extreme wind warnings are going to start, because the most intense part of this storm is about to start on the coast, and it's going to be there for several hours, and I mean all the way through the rest of this afternoon. So if you were down there, you've got to treat this as a tornado warning and go to your safe spot and get ready to ride this out. There's nothing else you can do at this point except for protect yourself and get to an interior place and get high enough to where you're going to be above this surge as it comes on in. So this is the outer eye wall. This is going to be the inner eye wall of Ida, and that's where your most intense hurricane part's going to be. That's where we'll probably have those wind gusts approaching 185 to 190 miles an hour right in here. Now, I'm going to draw this track on here, and this is a rough estimate. Notice it's going to get towards Terrebonne Bay by 9 a.m. That's when you'll really see things go downhill. It's already going downhill, but I'm talking these wind gusts approaching 100 miles an hour. We'll start towards Terrebonne Bay by 9 a.m., could get close to Galliano by 9 a.m., cut off by 9:26, Cocodrie 9:49 there. And I'm trying to make sure these times are right and they make sense. 10 o'clock to Chauvin, and then you can see there we could be looking at getting closer to Thibodaux and that area later on towards the afternoon, so closer to lunchtime. So overall, the most intense part of the storm, it is going to be near that eye, and I'm looking at this right now. This is as of 8 a.m. We just got an 8 a.m. update. The pressure continues to drop. It is at 9:30. It is a 150 mile per hour hurricane still, gusting to 185. Northwest movement hasn't changed. That's going to be at 15 miles an hour, and we are seeing that pressure continuing to drop, which is a sign that the storm is not weakening. And they do have it strengthening a little bit more up until landfall. So this is going to be making landfall as a strengthening Category 4, nearly Category 5 hurricane. This is as bad as it gets when you start talking about these impacts from a hurricane. But you could... Oh, perfect. Let's go to it if we can. This is a Grand Isle camera we're looking at. I hope this is live, and you can see parts of those outer eye wall. It's getting up to it. That's where we're going to start to see that significant wind move on in. This is also when the surge is going to start to literally surge in. So right now the winds are going to be more out of this direction in Grand Isle and Port Fourchon, wrapping around the center. But as it continues to move this way, the storm is moving up towards Port Fourchon. It's going to start to push that water more into the Grand Isle area, up into Lower Jefferson, and then eventually up towards the Lafitte area as well. So where Oshawa just was. Also pushing water to Leeville, Port Fourchon, Chauvin, and Cocodrie. And y'all let me know if we've got that camera. I'd love to go to it if we can get to it at some point. We're fortunate enough to have that camera for viewing down in Grand Isle, and I imagine it's not going to last the entirety of this storm. Okay. Okay. So this is the mouth of the river here, and that's where we're also seeing some strong winds, and they're going to continue to increase as well. We've got the eye wall and the kind of that outer eye wall that's going to be scraping Plaquemines Parish. It does look like the center is more than likely going to be tracking closer to Port Fourchon there. Oh, great. Okay, so here is the live picture from Grand Isle. Conditions will be going down here quite dramatically, and you could see the palm tree swaying there. You could see the beach. The surge really hasn't come up yet because we haven't seen that huge south push of wind just yet. That will happen within the next probably 30 minutes or so to an hour as we get more of a southeasterly wind rather than a easterly wind. We've got more of that easterly wind right now, but the winds are really picking on up there, and you could see that live picture. And I'm going to take a look, and y'all don't have to pull this up, but I'm going to look and see what our winds are currently doing down there in Grand Isle this morning. Currently gusting to 63 in Grand Isle. We are sustained at 48, so that's a tropical storm force winds. And you see how bad it looked. It's going to get double what we're seeing here. We've also got our winds gusting to 114 just off, so this is generally all headed in that direction. So we'll expect these winds to start to approach within the next hour or so. It'll really get bad down there. And landfall is probably not going to be in closer until maybe noon or so. So the landfall is going to be when the center crosses. That's not when the bad part starts. It's already starting, and we're already getting those strong winds everywhere else. 43 is what we're gusting to at the lakefront, 48 in Shell Beach, 32 Slidell, 31 in Kenner, 39 Galliano, and of course Port Fourchon, that side's not reporting, but 63 is what we're gusting to.
And Peyton, while you're talking about Grand Isle, we showed that shot of Grand Isle. It didn't look all that bad right now. If the storm stays on the track you're projecting now, that puts Grand Isle on the really strong east side of that storm. What are your impressions or feelings about what that'll do to the island? With sustained winds of 150 miles an hour.
It's not going to be good. The islands, it's going to take a significant, it's going to look significantly different after this. I mean, the damage that's going to happen here is probably pretty high. And not only the winds, but the surge, Eric. I mean, 16 feet. I know a lot of stuff is built up down there, but 16 feet of surge is quite a bit. And,
well, and a lot of those, excuse me, a lot of those are on concrete, a lot of those are on wood pilings, and then you've got others that are, when it's high like that, with a storm surge and a sustained wind of 150 miles an hour. I don't know how you get past that.
You don't. And the thing is, a lot of these structures down here aren't, concrete buildings, and they're not, fortified structures or castles. A lot of them are wood. The roofs can fly off. I'm sure they have hurricane straps and everything built in, but you start to get up to 150 mile an hour, and that's a sustain. I mean, you've got gusts higher than that, perhaps, and, it's going to be structural failure.
And that's one of the big problems. And then at this next track, the last track we got, did it move at all? Did we see any drop in the pressure? We're still, it is a little bit, 930 millibar.
930. It was 933 the first, or 7, and then it was 935 at 6. So it is kind of just steadily dropping a couple millibars every hour. And those winds, 150 could go up a little bit more. We could be looking at 155, maybe a little bit more. And so that's why we're thinking this does have a chance to become a Cat 5, but at this point, the impacts really aren't going to change with regard to the strength of the thing. I mean, this thing's going to be blowing on in here. The track still takes it, I mean, dead center over Houma, dead center over Thibodaux. That's the eye. And you can imagine before the eye gets there, it's going to get extremely dangerous. And even Morgan City, they're going to be on this west side, right? So they're going to get that eye wall that moves through parts of St. Mary Parish, up through Assumption, and then up towards Baton Rouge. New Orleans' problem is going to be this thing right here. And to give you an idea, let's just take a look here and see how much of that core is actually going to impact us. Because what Zeta will do, oh gosh, Zeta. Ida, what storm? I'm still last year. What Ida is going to do, when storms make landfall, they will weaken and their wind field will start to spread out a little bit. So the storm itself, if we draw, we've got from the center here going about 70 miles of some pretty intense rainfall and probably some pretty intense winds. That's 70 miles from the center of the track. So if it stays on this current track, once it gets up towards around St. James Parish is when we could be in the worst eastern part of that eye wall. If you draw it out 70 miles, that's not good.
No.
That means most of New Orleans would be in that. And that's going to be a flooding threat also.
And let me ask you this, when you've got it going straight through Houma, how long do you think a storm like this, especially since there's so much marshland and what used to be a whole lot more marshland before coastal erosion, how strong will those winds be by the time it hits Houma, which is not that far from the coast?
No, I mean, it's basically in the water, right? And I mean, New Orleans is basically in the water. If you've ever looked at any aerial pictures, I mean, the water starts like right here. This is kind of deceiving. It makes it look like there's a lot of land, but as everyone knows, there's not. This is all marsh. And so Ida is not going to weaken much. It'll probably still be a Cat 4 once it gets to Houma. It'll probably be a Cat 4 all the way nearly up into Thibodaux. And then it will start to weaken pretty quickly once it gets up to Thibodaux and beyond. And we'll be looking at a Cat 3, Cat 2, and then up towards Baton Rouge, Cat 2, Cat 1. You know,
and we think about winds that strong. You know, we compare it to tornadoes. You were saying an EF3 is around 130 miles an hour. And you think about a sustained wind in a broad area, because this eye is, how wide is that eye actually?
It's been about 20 miles or so. It hasn't been terribly big, but it's something, you know.
So that could cut a swath of like 20 miles of sustained wind at 150 miles an hour.
It could. And I want to cover something real quick, Eric. I just got a great email from a viewer that says, what's the river look like right now? We want to know what the surge is going to do to the river, in the Mississippi River specifically. And the good news right now is that the Mississippi River has been running pretty low. It's been at about 4 feet. So it can take quite a bit of surge, and our levees in the city go all the way up to like 20 feet. So that's not going to be an issue. The river's at about 4 to 5 feet. It could get up to around 11 feet by this afternoon and evening. There's a live view from our West Bank tower cam. You notice it's shaking. That's because we do have those strong winds that are starting to move into the New Orleans metro. This will continue to deteriorate as we go through today.
All right, any more? I notice your computer is getting a lot of alerts right now.
Yeah, it's a tornado warning, but it's outside it's over in Jackson County, Mississippi. So.
All right, let's go over to Jade and what you need to know this morning.
From WWL-TV, this is continuing coverage of Hurricane Ida.
All right, guys, well, we are continuing to track, of course, Hurricane Ida, and really haven't had any good news about it. It is strengthening and moving closer towards us.
Yeah, we're looking for a landfall at this point in time around lunchtime in Terrebonne, Lafourche. So, and as a possible Category 5 storm. No matter what it comes in, this is going to be a major, strong hurricane, and a few miles an hour, because it's at 150 right now. 157 would be a Category 5. It really. 5 miles an hour doesn't make that much of a difference.
It doesn't. That's what Peyton said. We can't just focus on the category. It's going to be very strong.
Right. Well, let's get over to Jade Cunningham now with some things we need to know right now at 8:12.
Well, thanks. A major hurricane indeed. So here's a look at what you need to know ahead of the storm. The Sewerage and Water Board of New Orleans gave an update on their pumping and power status ahead of Hurricane Ida. Currently, 96 of 99 drainage pumps are available for service. The pumps down are located at DPS 14 in New Orleans East, as well as DPS 6 and DPS 12 in Lakeview. 4 EMD generators are available, and all frequency changers are in service and are ready for use. The Cajun Navy is preparing for Hurricane Ida to make landfall. Ida is expected to bring, of course, widespread flooding across our viewing area as early as this afternoon. The Cajun Navy says they have spent the last few days organizing equipment and supplies at their warehouse in Baton Rouge. Items like high water vehicles, shallow draft watercraft, and even aircraft have been brought in to help assist with rescue efforts. The Orleans Parish Sheriff's Office has relocated hundreds of inmates. This is a part of their emergency operations and hurricane preparedness plan. Approximately 835 inmates have been relocated to other correctional facilities, and 3 inmates are being released. Remember, you can get more updates along with live interactive radar on our WWL TV app. It is free and in your app store.
All right, Jade, thank you very much. We want to get back to our Doug Mouton, who's been on the North Shore this morning.
Yeah. Hey, Sheba, look, I just wanted to show you guys one spot because this is a spot that Parish President Robbie Miller talked about. You can see that's Middendorf's off in the distance, the white building. This is the western side of Lake Pontchartrain, and obviously the water from Lake Pontchartrain, as the winds blow east to west, will empty into Lake Maurepas, and then as rivers fill up, there's no place for the water to go. Water is going to be an issue. Now, we'll say this right now. At the moment, it is a little high here. The water is what they would say slightly high, but in no way abnormally high. But this is an area that we are definitely going to be watching. Certainly, Tangipahoa Parish is going to catch a big punch from the winds of Ida as Ida moves north. But also, the water is a big issue and will be a big issue for the next few days. And I wanted to show this spot while it looks like this, because later today and certainly in the next couple of days, this is not what this area is going to look like. So just wanted to show it to you now. A little high, not problematically high, but that is expected to change. For now, reporting live in Manchac, Doug Mouton, Eyewitness News.
Thank you very much, Doug. We are now getting an update from the Sewage and Water Board. The Executive Director, Ghassan Korban, is joining us now on the phone with more. Good morning, and are you guys prepared for this?
Good morning. Well, we are as prepared as can be. Actually, we're going into the storm a little bit more confident than we were yesterday. Despite the intensity and obviously the enormity of the expected storm, we're going into it with 3 major turbines online. We brought T4, turbine 4, online overnight, and it's holding, so we're more confident that we have more power than we need. So we're prepared. We have 96 pumps working out of the 99.
And that is, excuse me, Ghassan, that is troubling to a lot of people that 3 pumps are out, especially if we get the kind of rain that we're talking about. Because would you call these critical pumps?
Well, two of them are less critical, only because I say that in a lot of cases where we have multiple pumps in a given station, hardly ever we run them all at the same time. The number exists for redundancy, so we may lack slight redundancy in two situations. The one that obviously a little bit more concerning, especially for that's in the DPS 12, because it's a one-station pump, and there's a built redundancy in that area where the canals actually are interconnected, and whatever is in we won't be able to pump with the DPS 12. The water will flow toward other canals, and the water is directed to DPS 6, which has we have 14 working pumps in that station. Yeah. So we're confident that we will handle that. Now, keep in mind that the intensity of this rain is going to make some of this irrelevant, to be honest with you, because it's going to overwhelm the system regardless whether we have 96 or 99.
And Ghassan, can you clear something up? Because we have heard numbers bandied about for so many years. Is it the first inch you can handle, then half an inch after that, or what is the exact figure? Or do we actually know what they can take per hour max?
Yes, what we know is that our system is designed for half inch per hour. Okay, the reason the first hour is 1 inch per hour instead of half is because we allow for saturation of soil. Obviously, some of that water, the first half inch is absorbed with soil, and also some of the water goes into the canals, and there's a lot of storage capacity, that initial half inch. So, and then after that, it's designed for half inch per hour for every hour after that. We all know that it hardly rains like that, in a steady fashion. If it does, we will be able to handle it without any problems. Obviously, the issue here is that we're going to have intense rain that well exceeds the half inch, and water will back up and you'll have flooded streets. And again, our job becomes to drain that water as fast as we can.
And the other big problem you all have had over the years is with electricity, and we are going to lose electricity. How many turbines are actually working? Is turbine 4 back up?
Yes, T4 is back up. So T4 and T5 are our two larger turbines, and they're both online, producing about 18 megawatts each. So that really gives us a lot of confidence and a lot of power. We also have frequency changers where we use T6, turbine 6, to also power some of the pumps. Obviously, if we have a full area outage, power outage, and for an extended period of time, we will struggle obviously more, especially not only in drainage, but also in pumping sewage, because we have about 80 pumps, and many of those rely very heavily on energy. So if that power goes out, we're going to have roving generators that will allow us to draw down the levels of the sewage on those pumping stations. So it's not just drainage.
Give me a balance on what you can actually produce energy and what you depend on energy for power. I mean, because you depend on both actually.
Yes, absolutely. So I don't have that breakdown readily, but what I can explain to you is that half of the pumps that we have, the drainage pumps, rely on 25 hertz, or they're 25 hertz pumps, and we are able today to produce all the megawatts that we need to power all needed pumps. And what we also use energy to power some of those 25 hertz by using frequency changes, a converter that basically takes the 60 hertz from energy,
and converts
brings it down to 25 and allow us to drive those 25 hertz pumps. Now, there are many, many other pumps, half of them actually, that run on 60. They're new technology, and if we have the outage that we're anticipating, we'll have to stand up our generators that are positioned in obviously strategically at those pumping stations to allow us to continue the pumping.
And
go ahead.
I'm sorry. And what proactive measures did the Sewage and Water Board take to make sure storm drains are clean? Because we know that's been a historic problem in this city, that there's so much garbage and stuff in storm drains and storm pipes that it's a constant worry.
It's certainly it's a worry. Department of Public Works, who's the responsible agency for the catch basins, have been very proactive. I'm sorry?
But you work with them.
No, we're two separate entities. We are actually a state entity. Well, obviously, we're very strong partners with the city, but we are a standalone utility. And there's a division in the responsibility relative to the system. I know it's confusing, but nonetheless, we obviously take that issue seriously. We work very close with our partners at DPW in the city to make sure that as many of those catch basins are open and accessible, because if the water doesn't make it through, we cannot pump it.
Yeah, no, I understand it's two separate agencies, but you guys depend on each other. Without, if the storm drains aren't clear, you're not going to get the water out.
Absolutely, and that's why we work very closely with them, making sure that they, as a matter of fact, we collaborate, and sometimes if they need equipment, such as vac equipment to clean up some catch basins, we let that happen, and so we're very collaborative in that regard. I just want to make that delineation. Nonetheless, the catch basins are key component of the drainage system, and that's why we asked earlier in the week that, for residents, if you witness or see some garbage blocking a catch basin, just if you can make the effort to move that out of the way without lifting, the lid or anything like that, just clear the way. It will help that situation tremendously.
And just
we're all in this together, as you know.
Yes, for folks who are watching now and in areas that flood historically, no matter how many pumps are running, I mean, are there places right now that you're more concerned about than others?
Well, I mean, history obviously tells us that some areas, yes, do flood more repeatedly than others, and we are concerned. We're paying attention. At one point, again, it was just a watch and see, and we're going to do everything we can to pump that water as fast as we can.
And are you confident that that this time will not be like times in the past where you have enough power, you have enough pumps running, that we will do the best we can with what we've got, all things considered, how much rain we're getting?
Absolutely. We're confident. We're on high alert. We're fully staffed. We have, again, very good complement of power generation equipment, and obviously 96 pumps are available and working. So we are in good shape. But keep in mind, the storm is pretty enormous and is going to bring a lot of rain. And just want to be, cautious about overpromising here, because the intensity is going to overwhelm the system. And that's just a fact, and we're going to stay at it. We're going to remain diligent about our mission to pump the water as fast as we can.
And if we do get, say, 10 inches or more, that's going to be a lot of flooding. That's more this system was ever, or any system is designed to handle.
That is very accurate. That's just a matter of fact. And if you bring that much water on any city and any system, you will have area-wide flooding. And we're more unique. We're not going to rely on gravity to carry that water away. We're going to have to pump every single drop.
And getting back to the power, is that why the deal with Energy to build a substation by you is so important?
Oh, absolutely. That's vitally important. It's just imperative to move into a modern system that is more reliable. And obviously, we have a redundant system that's being designed to stand up, just in case we have an issue with the substation in the future, as unlikely as that may be. But we have the obligation to have two systems that one can stand for the other in case of an outage.
And you just said you're fully staffed, everybody's ready to go, nobody's going to hit the wrong switch. I mean, you guys have redundancy all over the place now.
Absolutely. I mean, we've been practicing, we've been getting ready around the clock for the last couple of days. I mean, obviously we prepare for this every single day, but obviously we've intensified the preparation work, and we feel very confident we're going to do our part.
All right, Ghassan, thank you very much. We appreciate the information, and let's hope we don't get anywhere near the rain they're predicting.
Amen to that. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Well, St. Charles Parish has announced 2 shelters of last resort. The first is on the West Bank at the Edward Dufresne Community Center. That's at 274 Judge Edwards A. Dufresne Parkway in Luling. The second is in Destrehan at the Harry Hurst Middle School Gym, 170 Roadrunner Lane in Destrehan. There will be no supplies available at the shelters, so you'll have to bring anything you need. Emergency officials say if you feel like your life is in danger from Hurricane Ida, you should move to these shelters immediately. And we're getting updates from leaders in Terrebonne Parish this morning. Danny Monteverdi spoke with Parish President Gordon Dove.
We're here at the Terrebonne Parish Emergency Operations Center with Parish President Gordon Dove. And Gordon, how are you feeling this morning so far?
Well, we've been building levees, pump stations, and we've added 60% pumping capacity to Terrebonne Parish. All our pumps are on SCADA and telemetry. When I say all our pumps, all our major pump stations, and they do have backup generators if they're electric. And our levee system is about a 78-mile levee system, about 15 miles south of Houma itself, and 15 miles north of the Gulf, to give you about where it's at. It's 12-foot levees. They were core permitted. They compacted. The bases are about 240 feet base to 300-foot bases. and they're 12 feet. Now, our floodgates are 18 feet, so, you know, our goal is to get everything to 18, but right now we have 12 foot. They're calling for 9 to 12 feet since we got on the western side of it, so we're more comfortable, you know, and like everyone knows, levees are risk reduction. They can be overtopped, but we can take some overtopping, and we hope it doesn't happen. And, you know, we have 130 water control structures. Terrebonne has a lot of tributaries out of our estuaries and all that is, all that's closed. And we're hunkering down, and, you know, we're going to get, it looks like about 125 to 130 mile an hour wind, maybe 150.
And that's the thing, because right now, it doesn't seem to be a lot, but that's the thing. The day is young, and I guess the message to people is don't let this fool you.
Well, don't let this fool you. If you're here, hunker down, find a safe room, especially one without windows if you can. If your house was built after 2006, July, I was in the legislature when we passed that after Katrina Rita. As you built under international building codes, which became state law, your house is about 140 miles an hour with what it should have been built with impact glass. And of course, if your house is an old house, it's went through a lot of hurricanes. So what I'm urging the public to do, and if you live in a trailer, you live in a motorhome, you live in a travel trailer, get out. Don't even think that even if you got straps, that's not going to hold against this monster coming after us. This thing is bad, and we're urging people to get out of these mobile homes because that's nothing to play with. They're going to blow apart. And just, you know, contact us if you have no place to go. We have contracts set up with hotels. A lot of these hotels were built after 2006. So they are rated to 140. If I have to, I'll open up the Civic Center, which, you know, we're transporting our people to Monroe right now. But we will open up. We will accommodate anyone. If you have a trailer, get in touch with us. Just please get out. I'm begging you. We're going to sit back and hunker down and get you know, prepare for the worst and wish for the best. You know.
Time will tell.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you.
Parish President Gordon Dove, thank you much. That is the latest here in Terrebonne Parish. Back to you guys in the studio in New Orleans.
From WWL-TV, this is continuing coverage of Hurricane Ida.
Oh, hello, welcome back everybody, and we are continuing to track Hurricane Ida here, just checking in on our latest wind speeds, and winds are starting to really increase down along our coastal areas. We're gusting now to nearly 70 miles an hour in Grand Isle. We've got a camera down there, so hopefully we can take a look at it in here a little bit. And we're gusting to 114 now off Southwest Pass. It recently gusted to 100 and I believe 20-something miles an hour. So we're continuing to see the worst part of the hurricane, which is going to be right in here, move up towards our coastal areas. Galliano gusting to 39. We're gusting to 43 at the lakefront and 48 at Shell Beach. North Shore still below 30 miles an hour, so nothing too terrible on the North Shore just yet. But those intense winds are coming. A lot of phones down on the bayou and are in the bayou parishes and down into Plaquemines and Lower Jefferson went off with that extreme alert. It's an extreme wind warning, which means you can expect winds over 150 miles per hour to begin within the next hour. And you need to take shelter. You got to treat this as a tornado warning. Parish President of Terrebonne just had a great piece of advice. If you live in a mobile home, you got to get out. You will not your mobile home will not survive these types of winds, and it's still relatively calm there. If you know someone else who stayed that's got a sturdy house, call them, text them, say, I'm coming over, I'll be there in 5 minutes, because you cannot ride this out in a non-sturdy structure. So anywhere in the purple here has the best chance of seeing those winds over 100 miles per hour, and they will begin pretty soon. And that goes all the way up to nearly the West Bank, towards Belle Chase and going down towards Raceland. It does not include Thibodaux, but it does include Houma. It includes all of our coastal areas from Chauvin, Cocodrie, Golden Meadow, Port Fourchon, Grand Isle, and pretty much all of Plaquemines. I mean, all of Plaquemines Parish is currently under that extreme wind warning. So let's take a look at Ida. What's the latest on it? It's clearly within sight of our radar here. You can see the eye wall, everything to it. It's just a classic major Strong, strong hurricane. The hurricane hunters were in there, and they're finding that it's not weakening. The pressure is at 9:30. It was at 9:33 at 7. It was at 9:35 at 6. What does that mean? As the pressure drops, the storm is continuing to strengthen, and the winds will eventually start to go up. So that's why we've continued to see the winds go up to 150 miles per hour sustained. That's a strong Category 4. Winds are gusting, though, closer to 185, and I think that's probably going to get a little bit worse. Could be gusting up to 190 now, and they do have it making landfall as nearly a Category 5. Now, they have it making landfall as a 155 storm, but if it was 157, it would be a Cat 5. So you're splitting hairs at this point, and you're basically dealing with a Category 5 coming down onto Lafourche down here. So there's the line of it. It takes it through Terrebonne Bay, running right over portions of Port Fourchon, running right over Houma, running right over Thibodaux. That's the path of the eye. But you got to remember, the worst impacts aren't in the eye. The eye's calm, but to get into the eye, you got to go through the most intense part of the hurricane, that northern eye wall here. We've got the eastern eye wall, and this is what we're going to be watching up in New Orleans. It doesn't look like we're going to get the eye in New Orleans, but we're going to get this part. And this part's going to have a lot of rain, a lot of rain. It's going to have perhaps destructive winds over 100 miles an hour. And it is going to bring in the storm surge to the areas outside the levee protection system. So that's what we're going to be watching. And I was drawing a line earlier. This extends about 76 to 80 miles to the east of the center. And with the center line right now, that would put that all over, that entire thing over the New Orleans metro, if it stays on that same track and if it keeps this same structure. So if you are down in, or if you have a property, hopefully there's no one down here, I pray there's not, down in Plaquemines Parish, Grand Isle, we know there's people down here, Port Fourchon, Galliano, Leeville, Golden Meadow, Cocodrie, Chauvin, anywhere south of Houma, Ashland, it's about to get rough. And it could be moving in within the next, 20, 30 minutes to an hour or so. Northwest movement is at 15 miles per hour, so it has continued to maintain that same speed as it moves across the area. So there's a closer look at some of those locations. I do want to show you the latest track here. They do have it moving in as a Category 4, a strong Category 4 by around noon. That'll be lunch, or that'll be the landfall, and then it's going to take its time weakening. Now, it is going to weaken quickly, but it's going to stay a hurricane nearly the entire time it moves through Louisiana. So down here along the coast, Cat 4, nearly a Cat 5. It's probably still going to be a Category 1, maybe nearly a Category 2 as it gets to Baton Rouge by midnight. So in 12 hours, it's going to travel there. So you can imagine we're already getting rain for most of our areas, and we're going to continue to get rain as long as we're to the east of it. So it is going to rain perhaps for over 12 to 18 hours in some areas, and that's why not only the wind and flooding or storm surge threat is there, but the flooding threat from rainfall is definitely going to be elevated on the east side of this system. Now, as we go into this Monday afternoon, by 1 p.m., it will be up into the Jackson area, and we'll start to see improvements by tomorrow afternoon, but it's still not going to be that nice tomorrow. Let me go back here. I want to show you some of our other products and what we're dealing with with our impacts here. We've been talking about the flooding threat with Ida, and it could be quite significant for some areas. Eric just interviewed the Sewage and Water Board, and as he said, it will certainly absolutely not be able to handle this. There's no system in the world that can handle tropical rain like this that's going to be moving on in. So we could see anywhere between 10 to 15 inches of rain. 15 inches, I think, will be on the high side, but it is a real possibility, and it could be a big area that sees 15 inches of rain. It just happens to be it's centered right over the New Orleans metro down towards the coast, and even on the North Shore, you could see significant rain. So that's what we're looking at with that rainfall threat and the flooding threat from that. North Shore is going to have to watch the rivers, and something that's not going to help the river situation is the storm surge backing up into the lakes. That's where all of our North Shore rivers drain, whether it be Maurepas or Pontchartrain. That's going to cause problems. 5 to 8 feet is also going to be problematic for our areas down here towards Tangipahoa, St. John Parish, but this is going to be the big one. 12 to 16 feet down here from Port Fourchon to the mouth of the river. That's where the surge is going to come up. We hope we get a chance later to check in on that Grand Isle cam and see if surge is coming up. And of course, still forecasting 8 to 12 feet up towards Houma, Thibodaux, and Terrebonne Bay. 8 to 12 feet for the east bank of Plaquemines and up into St. Bernard and Harrison and Hancock counties.
Thank you very much. We are getting updates from all across the region as Hurricane Ida is approaching the coast of Louisiana.
Ida just hours away from making landfall in Louisiana. It's already causing flooding near the coast.
That's right. As we get closer to noon, we'll see more of those impacts. Let's get over to Jade Cunningham with some things you need to know.
to know ahead of the storm. Hurricane Ida will put our levee system to the ultimate test. Heath Jones with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers joined us on the show earlier this morning, saying the levees in the Houma and Terrebonne Parish areas may have some problems with Hurricane Ida, but did say the levees in the New Orleans metro area are better prepared to take on the strength of the storm. Well, here is Grand Isle, where flooding is already happening. This video shows water is rising to the seats of picnic tables. This area will definitely see some of the worst conditions from Ida today. Power is out for most of Grand Isle, according to Entergy's online outages map. Governor John Bel Edwards says the evacuation of hospitals in Ida's path was not possible. Normally that would be considered, but Edwards said with the amount of COVID patients, it was impractical. Roughly 15 of Auctioneer's hospitals could be affected by Ida. Auctioneer has evacuated some patients with particular medical needs and smaller hospitals to their larger facilities. The State Health Department reports nearly 2,700 COVID patients are currently hospitalized. And remember, you can get more updates along with live interactive radar on our WWL-TV app. Just search WWL-TV in your app store.
All right, thank you so much, Jade. We want to get an update on the conditions in St. John Parish this morning. Joining us now is Parish President Jacqueline Hotard. And thanks so much for checking in with us.
For having us.
Yeah, kind of tell us what you're seeing right now. What's going on?
What we're seeing right now, it seems like everyone is making their final preparations that they need to make at this time. The roads, there's not really that much traffic on our roads right now, which is a good thing. That means that people have taken our warnings very seriously, that this storm is very seriously. And the residents who have decided to remain and weather this storm have gotten everything they need, and they're just hunkering down to brace Ida.
Yeah, that's definitely a good thing that people are heeding those warnings. It is time to stay in place and see what happens here. I'm sure you've been following the updates on the storm as we have all morning long. And as you know, the storm is intensifying, getting stronger. We're getting more winds and storm surge from it than we even thought we would. What are your thoughts and reaction to this as you're hearing this news?
Our biggest concern as the storm continues to just take those little jogs is the amount of rainfall that could be produced in a very short period of time. We know that even without a named storm, rainfall, that much rainfall over a short period of time will inundate all of our pumping capacity or anything. And in addition to that, with the rising lake levels, we could see some water come into our low-lying areas. So that is a concern. And on top of that, the strength of the winds that we will experience could cause additional damage, power outages, trees across the roadways. We're just asking our residents, wherever you are now, please stay put there until this storm is over.
Yeah, and you mentioned being worried about the rain being more than the pumping capacity that you guys have there. Are all of your pumps working and available right now?
Yes, all of our pumps are working and available. Again, the bigger concern is we pump to the lake. Our drainage system is a gravity system, so we send all of our water to Lake Pontchartrain. Of course, when Lake Pontchartrain has overfilled, we don't have any capacity to put that water. So we will see water in the streets. You know, there's always possibility for flooding in general with an event like this, and we're going to do all that we can. But we're just asking our residents to take these final preparations. Again, you know, put your important documents up high, charge all of your cell phones, make sure that you will have access to all of the information that you will need in the event of a power outage, which we know is coming, and make those final preparations now. And to gather everything in one place, you know, I find that we want to remain calm in an emergency, but oftentimes it's very difficult to do that. So if you gather everything in one place right now, then when the electricity goes out or anything, you're not looking for all of your, you know, your batteries and flashlights and medicine and those types of things.
Definitely. You kind of explained that water you're worried about being pushed from Lake Pontchartrain and the impact that has on you guys to be able to pump water. We've, of course, been talking to our meteorologist about what they're worried about most in each parish, and Peyton Malone did say he was very concerned about the lake in your area.
Yes. Yes, we are as well. With the Lake Pontchartrain, Lake Maurepas, that we're right there. That is a big concern of ours. Even with this little bit of track to the east, the storm surge predictions haven't changed. However, the amount of rainfall that we could potentially see has changed. And so that is the biggest concern, the amount of rainfall. And then, of course, the winds, you know, the strength of these winds. Ida's going to test this entire region.
Definitely. And you mentioned that it doesn't seem like most people are on the roads, that they heeded the warnings that are in place. Do you have a shelter, though, for folks who still need somewhere to go?
Yes, we do have a shelter open. We opened our shelter yesterday at 6 p.m. That shelter is at Emily C. Watkins Elementary School at 938 LA 628. We will keep our shelter open throughout the duration of the storm. However, I would ask residents, if you do want to come to the shelter, now's the time to do that. The conditions on the road will begin to deteriorate very quickly, and we definitely don't want you to try and seek that shelter in the heighten of Hurricane Ida. So if that's the plan that you want to make, please come now and don't wait. But we do have a shelter open. We have some people there. I just visited the shelter and everything's running very smoothly.
All right, glad to hear that. And finally, before we let you go, we've been talking to, of course, all the parishes in our area, and each parish official kind of has another storm that they're comparing this one to. Is this storm reminding you of a storm that the parish has been through before?
Not really. This is a different storm. It's moving a little quicker. It's more intense. It's very different than some of the storms that we've seen in the past. Our biggest one that everyone remembers is an Isaac, but Isaac was a slower moving storm, and it was less intense than this storm. So this is very different. It's just very different than what we've seen before. It is a very, very strong, powerful storm, very different, and it's moving at, I believe the last was 16 miles an hour, so it's very different. But we know that, again, this storm is going to test all of us. I'm asking our residents, again, wherever you are now, please just stay put, hunker down, and we will be here to support everyone as best as we can.
All right, and of course we are wishing you guys the best. Jacqueline Hotard with St. John the Baptist Parish, we appreciate you for joining us and updating your residents, and we'll check in with you throughout this storm.
Thank you, Sheba. Take care.
All right, let's get back over to Peyton. And you heard her saying there, like any other storm, we've been talking about the strength, and you keep saying this could be one of the strongest storms to ever hit Louisiana.
Yeah, Isaac was just a completely different ball game there. It was certainly not this strong, and it was moving a lot slower. So it's just that reminder that every storm's different. But it is taking a similar path, meaning the wind are going to be similar to some extent for St. John Parish. So right now you've got kind of that easterly to coming out of the east, or westerly to southwest wind. So that's pushing some water in to St. John right now. And the winds are going to stay like this throughout the remainder of today. Look at our wind gusts. We're gusting to 114 at Southwest Pass, sustained at 102. This is an elevated platform, so it's not that strong at the surface, but it's probably close. We're now up to 64 mile per hour wind gusting Grand Isle, 40 in Galliano. We've got 35 at the lakefront, gusting to 44. The North Shore gusting to around 20, so not too bad on the North Shore right now. And up in the river parishes, we are gusting to around 20 to 32, so not too bad up there either. But getting rough down here through Plaquemines and going down towards lower Lafourche and lower Jefferson. I want to time this out for you on when we can start to see the most significant impacts in your area and what we're looking at through the rest of today. So what you're looking at here is a wind gust and the potential kind of future radar. Think of it that way. It's just what the model thinks radar will look like. And this one's doing a pretty good job. And I want to walk you through the timeline on how long this is going to take to get through this entire event and some of the strong winds you could see. So let's start right now. Notice we've got wind gusts approaching the coastal areas. They'll be getting up towards 70, 80 miles an hour within the next hour or so and continue to go on up. In the New Orleans area, notice over the next couple of hours, we'll start to see our wind gust increase. And then here's where it's really going to get bad for our coastal areas. By around, and it's starting to get bad now, but the worst of it starting to move in the next couple of hours. This is by 10 to 11 to 12. We've got 100+ mile per hour winds on the coast. That's as Ida starts to make landfall. We're gusting well over 60 to 70 as you go south of the lake. New Orleans gusting in the upper 60s. The North Shore will start to see some gusts upwards of 40 to 50 by noon, and it will continue to go downhill across the area through the rest of today. So let's advance towards this evening. This is, let's do a little bit sooner than that. Let's do about 2 o'clock. This is 1, 2, 3 o'clock or so. Notice the most intense part of the hurricane making landfall. This model's been a little bit further into Lafourche Parish rather than Houma. Either one could happen, but either way, you're going to be dealing with wind gusts over 100 miles per hour in these areas as we go through the early afternoon hours. Winds will start to become dangerous up here in New Orleans as we go into the 1, 2, 3 o'clock. They'll start to get over that 80 to 90 mile per hour criteria. And then as we go into the afternoon, you can see their models showing. Now, this is kind of just towards this is a little bit different than the actual track that we're seeing from the National Hurricane Center at this point. This model wants to bring Ida a little bit closer to the metro, and this is a scenario we've been talking about, that if this thing decides it wants to wobble a little bit to the east, we could see a more significant wind impact in New Orleans, even more significant than what we're currently forecasting. So that's why this model is so aggressive with winds over 115 to 120 in New Orleans by this afternoon and evening, because it brings it in a little bit to the east. This is possible, but I will say the current forecast track keeps this center closer to Baton Rouge. So either way you look at it, we could be dealing with 100, 120 mile per hour wind gusts closer to this late afternoon into this evening from New Orleans up along the river. That's when things are also going to start to get rough on the North Shore. Notice wind gusts then approaching 80 to 90 miles an hour as we go into the evening, and then it will continue to just stay rough all the way towards midnight. This is 1 to 2 a.m. We're still gusting 70, 80 miles per hour on the North Shore. South Shore still seeing gusts 50 to 60 to 70. And if you've noticed this entire time, it's been raining. All this yellow here, this red here you see is intense rain. And that's going to continue through the rest of this afternoon, even into tonight. As we go into tomorrow morning, notice we're still seeing some showers and storms, and then winds will finally start to let up. But we're still going to have tropical storm conditions likely tomorrow morning into the early afternoon, late afternoon. I think we'll see improvements on the winds, but we'll still have some moisture around.
Peyton, thank you very much. We're getting an update on conditions in St. Charles Parish this morning. Joining us now is Parish President Matthew Jewell. And good morning. Thank you for joining us. I was wondering, where are you now and what are the conditions like?
I'm at our St. Charles Parish EOC, and we're seeing the conditions they're quickly deteriorating. We woke up this morning to gusty breeze. We're starting to see more of the tropical storm force winds. We're getting some rain coming through the area. We've opened a shelter of last resort for our residents, a shelter of refuge, and that is at on Judge Edward Dufresne Parkway and at Harry Hurst Middle School on the East Bank. We're encouraging residents, we want them to be there already, but we're encouraging residents in the next 10 to 20, 30 minutes to, if they're in a substandard structure, a mobile home, a manufactured home, or just any structure that they don't believe can withstand sustained triple-digit winds, they need to go to either the Edward A. Dufresne Community Center on the West Bank and the Harry Hurst Middle School gym on the East Bank.
And we do have that information on a graphic. We'll try to pop that up and put it on a full screen here shortly so people can also see it. There it is right there. You did issue a mandatory evacuation, but it seems like not everybody heeded that advice. About what percentage of your population left do you believe?
Look, I don't really have a good estimate, and I'm not going to pontificate on it, but I know there's a good bit of residents who have decided to ride this thing out. Obviously, making a mandatory evacuation call is always hard to do.
Sure.
And it was justified in this sense because our local meteorologists and our National Weather Service and the hurricane hunters, they all try to do as good a job of giving us the best information they can for us to make these decisions. We made the decisions based off of that information, and we woke up this morning to even worse news that we're going to see a potentially Category 5 storm, and then several hours of sustained winds well into the 100 miles an hour, and then gusts even higher than that. So I mean, just really a worst case scenario for people in St. Charles Parish and Southeast Louisiana in general who did not evacuate. We're going to see down trees across roads blocking first responders. We're going to see widespread power outages. That's what we're expecting. With that is going to come the challenges that we're going to have as a parish government, keeping uninterrupted utilities such as water and sewer, and really maintaining water quality is going to be a challenge. We're going to do the best we can, but we want residents, if they're not going to go to our shelter of refuge that you just displayed on your graphic, to really hunker down and be prepared to ride this thing out. It's going to get bad over the next several hours.
And of course, the high wind and rain, huge areas of concern. You just mentioned the wind. But Peyton and Michelle have been talking about how bad the storm surge is going to be there. Let's talk about your levee system, which is still in the works. And this is just an example of why that needs to be completed sooner rather than later, which I know you've obviously been pushing for.
Yeah, look, I've been praying that that we don't see the storm surge that was predicted again when we saw those initial storm surge models, which have since increased. We decided to call that mandatory evacuation, knowing that we have a plus 7.5 foot levee for most of the West Bank, but that areas in Bayou des Allemands are still vulnerable. We don't have, other parishes have. We've been fighting for it for years. We've been asking for hurricane flood protection levees, and to not be in a situation where we get our flood protection levees after the fact, after a community is devastated. So I'm praying that that doesn't happen. But St. Charles Parish has billions of dollars of industry that are of national security importance, and we need flood protection. And we've been asking for it for many years. St. Charles Parish has been doing everything it can to build hurricane protection levees over the last 10 to 15 years. So we're better protected than we ever were, but we're not at that 100-year storm protection levee like much of New Orleans and Jefferson Parish.
I know that's got to be so frustrating. Matthew Jewell, thank you so very much for your time, and we'll continue to check in with you today and tomorrow.
Thank you.
All right, guys, and David Hammer is live with the latest on the Sewage and Water Board's prep for Ida.
Yeah, and David, we had just talked with Gorban Kassan about the preparation. He said the turbine 4 is up, will keep running. He said 96 of 99 pumps operable.
Yeah, Eric, I want to try to clarify some of the things that Ghassan Korban was talking about with you. There was kind of a mixed bag there. Some very bad news is that it's going to overtax the system if we get the levels of rain that we're expecting no matter what. But the really good news that we heard from Ghassan Korban, the director of the Sewerage and Water Board, is that turbine 4 is going to be available. That was the main workhorse turbine making in-house power. That means they don't have to rely on Entergy, they don't have to rely on frequency changers to make the old-fashioned type of power that runs half the pumps that drain the city of New Orleans. That means that they have about 68 megawatts of in-house power available. That's more than we've seen since before the August 2017 flooding here in the city. So that's very significant. That gives him a level of confidence that should give us who live inside the city of New Orleans a level of confidence that that they'll be able to bring all of their assets to bear, assuming that those turbines don't cut off again. And that's one thing to keep in mind about turbine 4. They lost it for 6 years starting in 2012. Then they fixed it at a cost of upwards of $40 million, and then it went out again. And it was actually out for several months. They tried to bring it back on in May of this year, and then it went out again. So this has been a roller coaster with turbine 4. It is the biggest source of power that they have, along with turbine 5. Those were both brought on now in the last couple of months heading into hurricane season. So we'll see if they hold up. If they do, that's very good news. Again, we're still without that one pump that's at pump station 12 in the west end section of Lakeview. They say that the other 2 pumps that are adjacent, other 2 pumping stations that are adjacent, will help drain that section of Lakeview eventually, but there's a reason why they have a separate pumping station there, and it's not available at all. There's a single pump out at pump station 6, but there's many more larger pumps there. That's the one along the 17th Street Canal, along the Jefferson Parish line. So other than that, they're in very good shape with pumps, but again, this really comes down to power. It has always come down to their ability to make their own power, because Entergy as a source of power is very unreliable.
And David, Ghassan Korban did mention that while the power is important, they rely so much on Entergy that this station that they want to build in the future really has to come online.
Yeah, and we've seen some good news there. They're moving forward with that, but that's not going to be ready until 2023. Right. So, you know, the hope there is that you get more reliable Entergy power. You don't have to rely on overhead distribution lines, which obviously go out in any storm of any kind of significance. So relying on Entergy power in the middle of a high wind storm is dicey at best, because there are some underground feeder lines that do bring in some power, but they will have to convert that power to be able to run the older pumps, and that takes an extra step, and that means that those frequency changers are at the ready, but though that creates another area where something can fail.
And I also asked him about which of those 3 pumps are critical. He said only one is critical.
He said only one is critical?
Yes, he said the other ones were more redundant and backup.
Yeah, well, we have one out at pump station 6 along that 17th Street Canal. That one is one of the larger pumps. Right. But again, and that is a redundant source of drainage for that area along West End that's not going to have any pump available. The one piece of good news with that pump station 12 not being available is that at least it won't run backwards and bring water in from the Lake Pontchartrain into the neighborhood like we saw in recent cases, like in May of this year, or March, I should say.
Well, he assured us that there'd be no screw-ups like we've seen in the past. All right, David, thank you very much.
From WWL-TV, this is continuing coverage of Hurricane Ida.
All right, we're just now getting our 9 a.m. Updates in from the National Hurricane Center as we get our hourly updates now. And I wanted to start off, this was a sunrise on Hurricane Ida as visible satellite became available. And obviously that is our eye. The eye is really cleared on out. And once the sun starts to come up even more, this will be extremely impressive. It's amazing what you could see with these satellites. I mean, you can see all the way straight down to the ocean pretty much there. And this is sitting literally just off the coast of or Lower Jefferson. We're talking about 40 miles southeast of Grand Isle. The winds are at 150 still, and the pressure is staying at 930. So hopefully that means it is capped off there and we don't see any further intensification. We can't rule that out, but this is what we're looking at right now. Radar showing that eye clear as day. It is continuing to track near where they are forecasting it, so it still looks like landfall will be more than likely closer to Port Fourchon, but that still means we're going to see the significant impacts continue to spread up through our bayou parishes and Lower Jefferson towards Grand Isle here and even down Plaquemine. So this is where the most intense part of the hurricane currently is, and it's really getting rough down here towards Grand Isle at this point. I do want to look at our winds really quick, because as that eye wall continues to move towards Grand Isle, the winds are going to continue to shoot up. And I want to know what they're doing right now as we see our wind gusts increase. So currently sustained at 50 or 49, 61 is what we're gusting to in Grand Isle. But if you look off the coast, kind of a sign of what's to come for Grand Isle are these winds a little bit further towards the south. So we're sustained at 102 at Southwest Pass, gusting to 114. This is going to be a little bit elevated, but it's pretty good representative of what's going on close to the center of that storm and in the eye wall. Notice in Galliano, 49 is what you're gusting to. Let me zoom in here so we can see our other values. And we're gusting to 43 in Kenner, 43 at the lakefront, 20 Slidell, 20 in Hammond. So far on the North Shore, you're still looking good. New Orleans and down to the south, conditions are going to continue to deteriorate through the remainder of the morning. And then the roughest weather is going to be through the rest of this afternoon. Of course, we do have our hurricane warning, no surprise there. And as I mentioned, the latest track, at this point, we're pretty confident it's headed up towards the Port Fourchon area as landfall. Somewhere between Terrebonne Bay and Port Fourchon will be landfall closer to lunchtime. So we're talking within the next 2 to 3 hours, we'll probably have landfall occurring, and then it's moving inland. And the speed of this thing, it's slowed down a hair. We've been talking about this thing going to slow down just a little bit. It's not going to stall out. This is going to slow down just a little bit as it makes its turn, but it's now down to 14 miles per hour. It was at 16 yesterday. It was at 15 earlier, so it's just slowing down a little bit. But that will mean it's going to take its time getting through southern Louisiana. So at 1 p.m. near the coast, they do still have it as a 155 Category 4 storm. Category 5 is 157, and then making its way up towards the north, up towards the Baton Rouge area as we go into tonight. So it's going to take about 12 hours to go from our coast to Baton Rouge. You can imagine that entire 12 hours, all through this afternoon into tonight, it's going to be raining on this east side of the storm. It's also going to be windy. You're also going to have your storm surge. So these are going to be prolonged throughout the rest of today into tonight, and then I think we'll start to see some improvements tomorrow with the timing or with our conditions across the area. So as you can see there, the forecast cone does have it up around Jackson by tomorrow afternoon as a tropical storm. So for anyone up in north of Baton Rouge, Macomb, Natchez, Vicksburg, here's Hattiesburg, you could still see some power outages here as winds will still be anywhere between 50 to 80 miles per hour in southwest Mississippi. So that's the timing of it. It will continue to move, but it is taking its time at this point. So overall, conditions are already getting rough on the coast. Our worst conditions in New Orleans and the river parishes and the bayou parishes, Thibodaux and Houma, will be the rest of this morning, but especially this afternoon. And then the North Shore will be late afternoon going into this evening. So we'll see the worst of it on the North Shore later on today. Storm surge continues to be a really big concern. 12 to 16 feet is what we're forecasting towards the center and east of the center. That's where your most significant surge is going to be. We're still going with about 12 to 16 feet. So think for Port Fourchon, Barataria Bay here, going up towards Lafitte and Jean Lafitte. This is outside the levee protection system over on the West Bank. This is where you're going to see significant surge. You're also seeing significant surge rise over here on the West Bank of Plaquemines. Now on the East Bank of Plaquemines, not going to be much better. Remember, you get that funneling effect. The storm is here, so the winds are going into the storm, and all those winds are coming in right here. 8 to 12 feet for eastern St. Bernard. Think Wyclowski, Hopedale, Shell Beach. And you're also getting that water piled into the Wrigley's area. So as that water comes into the lake here, the lake is also going to rise. We think the lake is going to see about 5 to 8 foot of rise, and that'll be highest later today and going into tonight. So the lake's going to stay pretty elevated for the next 24 hours or so. And a lot of our surge is going to stay elevated for the next 24 hours or so. Hancock County, same story, 8 to 12 feet. That will definitely get up over Highway 90 in quite a few spots. That will inundate up the Jordan River as you go into Bay St. Louis and heading up towards the Kill and Diamond Head. They'll see water kind of spread on up there all the way past I-10. We'll see some water rise over there. Now, if you are west of the center, with the center now forecast to make landfall right near Port Fourchon, move smack dab up through Houma and Thibodaux and up through St. James, Assumption and Ascension Parish, the worst storm surge is probably going to be here, but this is still significant. We're likely still going to see surge rising here in parts of Terrebonne Parish, but if that center can stay just to the west or just to the east of Houma and Thibodaux or near it, that means you're going to mostly have a northerly wind coming around. That means the water's not being pushed onshore, it's actually being pushed offshore. So that's not necessarily a bad thing, but you're not going to be that lucky for Grand Isle and Plaquemines Parish and up into parts of Lower Jefferson and even parts of St. Charles on the west side of the river, on the west bank of the river. So that's one of our concerns. The other big concern continues to be for the flooding threat. This could be a really significant concern as we go into later today and especially tonight. So think about this. We're going to be tonight. Most people are probably going to lose power today. That seems like a guarantee. We could have flooding. We could have winds gusting over 100 miles per hour across the area, and you're not going to be able to get out in this. So if you live in a flood-prone area, if you don't want your car to flood, get it high right now in New Orleans if you're still here. Same thing for the North Shore. If you live along a river that floods, get it somewhere where it won't flood. Better yet, go somewhere where you're not going to be in the flood waters because we could be dealing with some flooding tonight. And we could be dealing with it even going into parts of tomorrow.
And Peyton, quickly, when you talk about that flooding, you know, we're talking about the possibility over a 24-hour period. Some of that rain could be 4, 5, 6 inches in an hour or two.
Yeah, you know, this is tropical rain. There's a ton of moisture in the atmosphere. It's very efficient, meaning the rainfall rates are going to be high. There's no doubt about it, and there's no way to get around it. And it could be raining, as I mentioned earlier. The storm's going to be here at noon. It'll be here by midnight. So in 12 hours, it's only going to travel that distance. And then entire time, it's going to be raining on the east side of the storm. So it could be raining constantly for maybe 12 hours in some areas.
Yeah, and we were talking about just how much the system can take here. It can't take that much. And even if it's over a 24-hour period, that much rain is still going to overpower the system. But especially in some of those cells where it just dumps tons of rain in a short amount of time.
There's bands in tropical systems, you know, if it's an intense band and it rides over the same area, I mean, it can get impressive fast. So that 15 inches, there could be a few spots that are closer to 20. It just depends on where that happens. But that is a possibility. And Eric, we've been talking about our rivers. I do want to mention all of our rivers on the North Shore are currently forecasted to crest either in major or near major flood stage by Monday and Tuesday. Now, that's a preliminary issue or forecast from the National Weather Service based on this rainfall forecast and based on that surge forecast. It all just depends on where it eventually ends up falling. But right now, we are forecasting all of our rivers on the North Shore to forecast near or in major flood stage Monday and Tuesday.
All right, Peyton, thank you very much. Right now it is 9:07, and we have been following this thing for hours now. We'll be on till we don't need to be on anymore.
Right, through the duration of it. And Ida is nearing Category 5 strength. The high winds and storm surge likely will cause catastrophic damage as well as widespread power outages.
Right. We're already starting to see some power outages. Let's get over to Jade Cunningham with some things you need to know.
Look at what you need to know before Ida makes landfall. St. Charles Parish has 2 shelters of last resort for residents who absolutely need it. One is at the Edward Dufresne Community Center in Luling. The other is in Destrehan at Hurryhurst Middle School on Roadrunner Lane. There will be no supplies available at the shelters, so you will have to bring everything you need. Emergency officials say if you feel like your life is in danger from Hurricane Ida, you should move to these shelters immediately. You should expect significant power outages starting this afternoon. Some places, again, already seeing outages. More than 15,000 customers have already lost power statewide. Entergy says they are mobilizing a storm team of approximately 16,000 members to address the outages. Based on historical restoration times, customers in the direct path of a storm as intense as Ida could experience outages for more than 3 weeks. And keep in mind, officials are stressing people stay inside during and after the storm. That means you should plan to be at home for at least 36 hours. Down power lines and other issues can make it very dangerous to leave your home or where you're taking shelter. They say to let the city and other responders assess all the damage first. Remember, you can get more updates along with live interactive radar on our WWL-TV app. It is free and in your app store.
All right, thank you very much, Dave. Well, we've been checking in as many areas we can around the region. We want to check in on Kenner now. Kenner Mayor Ben Zahn is joining us with an update. Ben, are you with us?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Kind of tell us what you are bracing yourself for right now.
So we are very prepared. We have cleaned all the storm drains. We have been throughout the city of Kenner picking up loose debris, doing it ourselves, working also with Ivy Waste to get that done. Our MERT team is up and running. Kenner Police Department, Kenner Fire Department is always ready to go. We are expecting, a very strong storm to hit us. We will be, I have told everybody, you don't need to leave. You can make that choice yourself. But if you do stay, we will stress that it will be conditions that you don't want to be in. And I'll sum it up as it'll be some type of primitive situation. So if you can handle that, we're ready to go.
Yeah, and did a lot of people leave out of the Kenner area? I have a couple of friends who live there, and they seem to be some of the more safer, secure feeling ones who decided not to leave. They said, we're in Kenner, we feel safe.
Yeah, and I want people to feel safe. Yes, you will be safe. We will have everything that you need. Of course, we'll go in during the storm. But if you, we have seen a good bit of people evacuate. My street, I'm on my street right now because it's at a Fun String Center. I see a lot of cars still home. You'll see that throughout the neighborhoods. A lot of businesses obviously are shut down.
Right.
I think they're just concerned. They just want to hunker in place for right now and shelter in place and hunker down as much as they can. I don't think we're going to get the blunt of it, but I think you're going to have a lot of down power lines, and that's
Sure.
that's the problem that we're facing.
Of course, from the wind, and then you'll have power outages. Go ahead.
But look, my message to the Kenner people are, along with the chief of police and along with our council, is that we are prepared. We are prepared. Any services that you need will be back up and running as soon as this thing passes. I have a great staff. We have a great group of people running the city of Kenner, and we will make sure that all services that we can provide, not Entergy, but that we can provide, will be back up and running as quickly as possible after this thing passes.
Yeah.
We're always prepared for these storms. Look, Sheba, we had 8 trial runs last year, so we were really prepared. The good thing about a trial run always is it prepares you for the real thing, and the real thing is here.
Yeah, this is definitely the real deal. I'm glad that you're telling your residents that you feel like you guys are prepared and confident in that preparation. We were showing the I-10 at Williams a little bit earlier because traffic in Kenner was insane yesterday, with people, of course, trying to get out of the city. This is another look in the Metairie area, I-10 at Causeway. Interstate's practically empty now, but of course, yesterday with people trying to leave the city, the traffic was crazy.
And that's what I always tell people. You're going to get yourself into a parking lot situation on the interstate. Do you really want to do that? Look, my family stayed. I kept my family here. My mother stayed with us. It's, you know, I think you're better off if you have some type of generator or something like that, and I have that. If you have some type of means of keeping your family in the same condition that they're in before the storm passes or after the storm passes, then just stay here. But just realize, if you don't have that, you're going to be in some type of primitive means that you can. It's going to be uncomfortable, and that's the biggest thing. Have your food and water if you don't have anything else.
Sure, and of course we are about 3 hours still from landfall, so I'm sure you're not seeing any major impacts yet. I saw a little bit of water on the interstate there. Are there certain neighborhoods or areas in Kenner that are of particular concern when it comes to things like flooding?
Yeah, Lincoln Manor is always one. We're doing a huge, with the help of the state, with Joe Stagney and the rest of our group up there, we're doing a huge drainage project there. So I do worry about Lincoln Manor. I do worry about areas in North Canada. You know, Chateau and Vintage is a huge area that usually floods for some reason. I do worry about those areas, but I think working with the parish leaders, I do believe that our drainage will be up and running, will keep consistent. Of course, no system works when you have too much. I always stress this too. If the street floods, good. That means your home's not flooding. So we get the calls that my street is flooded. My quick response is, that's good news. Is your home flooded? No, then good. The street is designed to flood. That's where they'll hold the water. And the parish does a good job. We could do a good job of getting it out of the street, and the parish does a good job getting it out from there. Now, of course, if everything's filled, then we might have an issue. I don't see it that kind of event. I see it more of an event of wind damage, and that's my biggest concern.
Sure, something you have to watch out for. And there's so many area officials we've talked to who have some big storm they think of for their area. I think a lot of people feel safe in Kenner. Is there a storm you think of particularly that did a lot of damage to Kenner? I remember doing some tornado coverage out there a couple of years ago, but what about as far as hurricanes?
Yeah. I mean, you know, the biggest thing that I can think of was Katrina, and that was mainly because of course, you know, a man-made problem, right? So, I mean, that's, you know, the way we had the flooding problem from that. That's the biggest one that I can always think of that we had last. We don't really have, we've had those little tornadoes I think it was on Loyola, East Louisiana State, a few years ago that you're talking about. They came out of nowhere, right? I mean, they just took some homes. That was just a storm. But when you think of water damage, I gotta think of Katrina, and it was more or less because, you know, the pumps weren't on.
Sure.
So had that not happened, I don't think we'd have had a major water event here. You're always going to have small flooding areas, which we have to unfortunately deal with. I don't make light of it, but we have to deal with those things. But this, I'm more concerned with the wind damage and the conditions that people will not want to live in for, y'all just said it yourselves, up to 3 weeks. That's catastrophic right there, right?
Yes, at a time when it's so hot. So, of course, the wind damage is a big concern for everyone because of those power outages. We appreciate you joining us. And, again, glad to hear that you're feeling confident in your preparations. Please check in with us if something changes, Ben.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Sheba.
All right. Stay safe. Thank you. All right, guys, let's get back over to Peyton. And you heard Kenner Mayor Ben Zahn there saying his biggest concern, the wind, which is everybody's concern. Yeah, and rain. You know, I'm looking at some of our latest guidance here, and nearly every single piece of guidance we use model run-wise depicts someone is going to get some extremely heavy rainfall that is going to lead to some flooding. Let me show you one of our models here. And if you notice, as we go through the remainder of the afternoon, the rain continues to move across the area as Ida moves on in. When you start to see these big, you know, the bright colors, the reds, the maroon, the purples, you're starting to get into that 10-inch range with the purple, and that could happen as soon as maybe 10, 11 o'clock, but it's going to continue through parts of tonight. This is not going to be a quick event, and I've never seen our model run show these colors before because
it is in that 20 to 25 inch range. And where you see these little dots, those are not even, those are over 25 inches. So it is possible that some areas do pick upwards of about 20 inches of rainfall. Where that is going to be in a narrow band more than likely. But you hope that sets up over an area that is where no one lives. It may be out here in the Biloxi Marsh area or down where water can drain into the Gulf of Mexico. But we do not need that setting up over the New Orleans metro or any part over any part of the southeast Louisiana or South Mississippi, because we could see some big problems. But notice how much purple is on this map. Widespread areas picking up at least 10 inches of rainfall seems like a good bet. So flooding is almost guaranteed in the city at this point. That's why we've been saying if you are here and you stay before the winds really get kicking this afternoon, move your car somewhere where it's not going to flood and then leave it there, because you're not going to be able to go out in the winds and move your car when it's raining and the winds are blowing 100 miles an hour. So that's just what we're looking at with the rain threat, and it is a very high threat. The rain threat is certainly not to be underestimated with Ida, even though it's got the wind threat and it's got the storm surge threat as well. I mean, we're talking about a Category 4, nearly Category 5 storm at this point. This is what it looks like. How ominous is this? Just seeing the eye spin right off of our coast. Port Fourchon, the eye is just south of you, maybe by 25 miles. There's Grand Isle. There's the eye. The most intense part of the storm is going to be that northern eye wall right in here and going on into the eastern side of the eye wall. And this is where we're going to see that big push of significant winds and surge come on into these areas over the next couple of hours. So the worst is settling in down here. This looks like it's going to track up towards Port Fourchon, kind of Terrebonne Bay. Notice Cocodrie, Chauvin's right there. They're going to get on the western side of this eye wall more than likely, which is just as intense. But that is a classic major hurricane. Winds 150 miles an hour, gusting to 185. That was as of 9 a.m., so just about 20 minutes ago. The speed has slowed down a hair. It might not seem like much, but it has kind of slowed down. It's not going to stall, but it'll continue to kind of move up towards the coast at 13 to 14 miles an hour. Pressure is at 9:30. It was at 9:30 at 8 a.m., so it did not change between 9 and 8. That's a good sign. That means it's not rapidly deepening anymore, at least we don't think. And just by the view of satellite, I mean, any way you look at it, it's still a very powerful and dangerous storm. We've got it on our radars as well. Our radar continues to show that eye wall, which is going to be the area that is around the eye, being the most intense part of the storm. Now, there's an area of no rain right here. And so if you're getting into the eye, there may be a brief period where the rain stops, really intense, the rain stops, and then it gets really intense again. And that's pretty common in these. And we may be looking at this thing trying to kind of level off at this point, and I think that's what's happening. But radar showing these reds in here, these are going to be your 185 mile per hour wind gusts, and those are going to move right into Port Fourchon, Grand Isle, Leeville, Golden Meadow, Galliano. If I'm naming any of these towns, you've got to be in a safe spot, like we're telling you there's a tornado coming right at your house, because this is going to produce tornadic-like damage as it moves on in. So that's where we're at with the track of it. Now, looking at the exact track, that is the red line, that's the center line of the cone we would be looking at. It moves up straight through Lafourche and Terrebonne. I mean, it moves right over Houma, moves right over Thibodaux, moves over parts of the river parishes. There's St. James, there's Ascension and Assumption Parish, and then it heads up towards Baton Rouge as well. So there's been no big changes with the track. What we're really going to be watching here in New Orleans is that flooding threat, and it's going to come from that eastern side of the storm. So we can get an idea on, you know, at first we were thinking, well, how much of this eastern side is actually going to impact New Orleans? If we look at, let me go back to this center line here to analyze this, because we can measure the distance here with the current look of it. Let me stop this. And if you look at it, we get a ruler here. We'll draw it from the center out towards kind of the edge of where that heavy rain stops. We're looking at about 65, 70 miles. Then we can come over here where we think the center is going to be once it's closer to Thibodaux and Houma, and then you draw that out 60 to 70 miles, and it puts most of New Orleans in the thick of this part right here, which, yes, is going to be a wind threat, but our big concern is also going to be that flooding threat from the rainfall. So this is a big concern as this moves up to us. Now, it's going to be moving through the South Shore through the rest of the afternoon. North Shore, you will have the chance to get in on the heavy rain flooding and the 100+ mile per hour wind gusts later this afternoon and going into this evening.
All right, Peyton, thank you very much. We are heading down to Terrebonne Parish and our Danny Monteverdi. Danny, you with us?
Hey, Eric, yes, good morning. Yeah, we are here in the Terrebonne Parish Emergency Operations Center. We've been outside a lot of it this morning, but we wanted to show you what it looks like inside. And real quick, I'm going to step out of the way and show you what's happening. As we know, there's going to be some bad weather coming this way, and this place is in full swing right now. Everyone from law enforcement, public safety, Army Corps of Engineers, you name it, in terms of anyone who needs to respond to this storm, that they're all here at the Emergency Operations Center in Terrebonne Parish, which is expected to take a big brunt of this today. And they are here on the clock, and you can see working to make sure everything stays as safe as possible. So that's what's happening inside of here. Or actually, real quick, Mike McDaniel, my colleague, just came back from out on the streets. And Mike, we just showed what it's like inside. Yeah. What's happening outside?
Yeah, so we literally just walked in the door. So we were in Thibodaux. We're staying in Thibodaux, same place you guys are. So on our journey down here, we just kind of rode around Thibodaux and also in Schriever on the way down. So in Thibodaux, we caught up with this family of 5. They were at a gas station trying to get some last-minute fuel because they live in Cutoff. They left their home at like 5 or 6 this morning, just heading north. They have no direction. They don't know where they're going. They don't want to go east or west because that's where everybody was going. They're going to stay behind. They want to protect their property. We heard that a lot for a lot of folks as their reasons to not heed these warnings and get out. He said he's retired state police, so he knows what it's like to kind of go through these situations. He's stayed behind before. His worry is that he will not be able to come back to his home for months. That's a very legitimate concern when you look at the path and the strength of the storm. So he's staying put. Another gentleman we talked to in Thibodaux, a neighborhood in Thibodaux, said that he was going to stay behind. He had his supplies. He had a wife and a son with him, so he's going to stay put. He's right in the older part of Thibodaux, right near Nicholls State University. So he's right in that area. So he seems to be okay. At this point, we're certainly going to go check on him once the storm passes over. We certainly hope he's okay. He's got a big tree right next to his house. He said it survived all the other hurricanes over the past 20 years. He's hoping it will survive this one. So.
In terms of, we're here at mid-morning now, what's it like out there right now in terms of the weather?
So just driving, it's just kind of drizzling, misty rain. You can tell that there's omniscience in the sky a little bit. The sun's actually trying to peek through outside just a little bit. So in certain areas, you get that little hit of sun right in your eye or right in your face, and that humidity really kicks in. But we know what's to come. But the rain is still slowly starting to trickle in here, and the winds are starting to pick up a little bit.
And so, Eric, that's kind of the situation here. As we've seen all morning, there's been nothing. We're seeing on TVs here in the EOC that there are a lot of places where we aren't, where there's a lot of rain happening, a lot of wind. Oddly enough, where we are, and this is just kind of one snapshot, where we are in Terrebonne Parish, the northern part of the parish near the Lafourche Parish line, it's oddly calm right now, as you heard Mike McDaniel say a few minutes ago. When we were out there this morning before sunrise, excuse me, there was some wind, there was some rain, but about as light as can be in both regards. And so that's kind of where things stand here right now. Unfortunately, we're fully expecting things to change in the next little bit. But again, it's just kind of an odd situation right now where here in particular, it's relatively calm. And I should say we don't want that to be a reason for people to start going out of their houses and getting out and doing things. It's best right now, and just until the storm is entirely gone, to just stay put where you are. Yeah. That's kind of what we're dealing with here right now, Eric.
And if the track stays where it is, you guys are ground zero for what could be a really strong Category 4 or a Category 5 storm, and that area's never gone through anything like this before.
Exactly, and that's the key thing, is that the storm is still out there. It didn't go away. It hasn't gone away. Again, as we said a second ago, other places around the metro area are being affected by it now. The storm is still out there, churning, spiraling in this direction. It's just there's been this little odd break in the bad weather here. And so that's probably the key thing. If there are people watching this in the Terrebonne Parish area right now, again, don't let this lull you into a false sense of security. We've said that a few times today, especially earlier this morning when it was just kind of a light rain, as we saw other places starting to get heavier rain. So again, I know it's very repetitive. It's just an odd sort of set of circumstances right here where, again, you heard Mike McDaniel say a second ago that the sun was trying to peek out in some spots.
Well, for the folks who stayed, hopefully they don't regret that move after the storm hits. All right, Danny, thank you very much. And tell Mike thank you, too.
All right, now we want to head over to Plaquemines Parish, where Candace Charles is. And guys, this parish is going to see significant storm surge for the majority of the parish.
Definitely. Candace, what are you seeing now?
I don't know if you guys can kind of hear it right behind me, but it's really heavy wind. As soon as we got here to the EOC building, we could feel the wind. The rain was starting to come down, really just going throughout the parish. It was very quiet, a lot of dead streets. A few of the streets actually had their lights out. Some of the restaurants and buildings had lights out already. Talking to the parish president briefly, he mentioned that power may be going out fairly soon, but that a lot of people have already evacuated. For those that are still here, he's asking people to just hunker down and be prepared to lose power anytime soon. Of course, they have a lot of people here at the EOC who are prepared, waiting to help in any way that they can. I've seen blankets and places for people to lay down and rest while they prepare to help other folks here. Everyone's just waiting to see what's going to happen, but they really are staying prepared to help anyone who may need it.
All right. Thank you very much, Candace.
From WWL-TV, this is continuing coverage of Hurricane Ida.
Well, good morning once again. Thank you for joining our continuing coverage of Hurricane Ida, a strong Category 4, possibly making a landfall as a Category 5.
Yeah, it's so scary how close it is. It's literally several miles per hour of winds that's making the difference from this becoming a Category 5 storm.
And regardless, it's gonna do so much damage.
Yeah. And it's 9:27 now. It's expected to make landfall around noon. And we just heard Danny and Mike talking about kind of the calm before the storm in Terrebonne. But then we heard Candace talking about the heavy wind already in Plaquemines. And we're seeing impacts all over our viewing area.
Well, and Danny, as I was saying to Danny, those guys are at ground zero if this thing keeps on where it is.
Yeah.
And we have never seen a storm of this magnitude, this strength, hit the shores of Louisiana.
And I think that's what's scaring people, because these are people who've lived through Betsy, who've lived through Katrina. So they're going, wait, this is stronger than all of those. And especially when it comes to winds, it is.
And and you think about, in the old days, there used to be a lot of marshland that would help protect it.
Right.
That marshland is so decimated now, and it'll be even more decimated after this storm.
Yeah. Let's get over to Michelle now for the very latest.
And this storm, it is truly an incredible storm. As of the latest update of 9 a.m., the pressure hasn't changed much, which is actually good news. So it's not continuing to strengthen as it gets closer to the southeast Louisiana coastline. Okay. But it is still packing winds of 150 miles per hour with wind gusts of 185. So again, we're looking at Category 5 wind gusts. They're very strong wind gusts. And I am expecting widespread damage across the area as this thing makes landfall. Already starting to see strong winds push on shore. And it's about 40 miles south-southeast of Grand Isle. So again, it is continuing to get closer and closer to us, and some of us are already feeling the effects here across southeast Louisiana. But you can see how well defined that eye is there, and really the strongest winds are located around the eye wall. And keep in mind, we're already seeing those outer bands push into the area, and notice how massive this storm is. We are seeing, again, those outer rain bands extending all the way to portions of the Panhandle this morning. And we do expect, again, for that rain to continue on shore as we head into the afternoon hours. So I do want to zoom in into that eye. Just look how well defined that eye is there. Now, so as Peyton was mentioning there, as that eye wall makes landfall later on today, some areas will see a bit of a calm period before things really start to intensify. And again, you'll find the strongest winds around that eye wall there. And as of the latest update, we're actually finding hurricane force winds extending well from the eye wall about 40 miles out. So we're looking at an extreme wind warning for much of the area south of the lake. So again, things are really starting to intensify in terms of winds at the moment. So as we take a look at a few readings here, some areas are already seeing 97 mile per hour winds sustained. Grand Isle, 56 mile per hour winds. Notice the wind gust, 75 miles per hour, and of course that is going to continue to pick up. As we head to Shell Beach, right now we're looking at sustained winds of 45 miles per hour, and the water's already starting to get rough in those areas, and Lake Bourne continuing to rise. And we're looking at, it looks like the wind speeds there, or the wind gusts rather, at 53 miles per hour. And it's also picking up at the lakefront. So when we're talking about the wind field, again, we'll be dealing with strong winds throughout much of the day. We're looking at those hurricane force winds extending from the center of the storm about 40 miles out, tropical force winds about 140 miles out. So notice as we head into this evening, still dealing with strong winds across southeast Louisiana. This is going to cause some big time problems in terms of storm surge, and I'll get to the storm surge graphic in just a bit. As we head into tonight, still dealing with strong winds, and I do expect in the North Shore areas we'll start seeing those winds really start picking up later on this evening. So we'll start seeing things start to improve as we head into tomorrow afternoon. Now, rainfall, a lot of tropical moisture is associated with this system. We've been talking about it for some time. We saw the first outer bands push into the area earlier this morning. We had a few tornado warnings in effect. Haven't heard of any damages though. So we had that first rain band push in. Here comes the second one. Right now we are seeing light to moderate rain in a few spots, but it will start to get heavy again as that eye wall makes landfall. I popped up the forecast track here again. This is what the National Hurricane Center, their official forecast. Again, if it jogs to the east here, again, we'll see stronger winds because New Orleans will be closer to that eye wall. And if it jogs to the west, we are still going to see pretty strong winds, but it will be less intense. Nonetheless, we are on the dirty side, the wetter side of the system, so we will see heavy rain across portions of New Orleans, stretching into Belle Chase. Again, the West Bank going to see heavy rain. Galliano already seeing heavy rain at the moment, and they will come in spurts. And I do want to show you how well defined that eye is, seeing strong thunderstorms around that eye. So it's just very telling how strong this system is. So we'll go ahead and cover parish by parish. North Shore, again, you all will start really seeing the effects later on this afternoon. In terms of rainfall, between 6 to 10 inches of rain, that is a whole lot of rain, and then coupled with storm surge. So it's going to take some time for that water to drain out, again, especially with the lake already rising. And we're looking at maximum sustained winds of between 70 to 80 miles per hour, so we could potentially see some damage in your areas later on this afternoon, so down trees, power outages, and notice the wind gusts up to 110 miles per hour, so that is very strong. And then along Lake Pontchartrain, the storm surge between 5 to 8 feet. As we take a look at the Metro New Orleans area, we're looking at about 6 to 10 inches as well, but locally we may see higher amounts, maybe about 12, even 15 inches. But the winds will be pretty strong, again, as we get closer to that eye wall. Maximum sustained winds there between 100 to 120 miles per hour with wind gusts about 120, possibly 130 miles per hour. Again, damaging winds, and then the storm surge around the lake, we're looking at 8 to 12 feet. Again, this is going to be around Lake Bourne. As we head to the river parishes, again, in the highlighted areas, the rainfall, we're looking between 5 to 10 inches and possibly higher amounts, of course. And then the winds, I upped the winds between 110 to 130 miles per hour, and then the wind gusts 130. So we're looking at some very strong winds. And even later on this afternoon, the winds will remain pretty strong as that system moves through the area. And of course, we are expecting this system to slowly or actually rapidly weaken again as that center of the storm loses its fuel. Storm surge, we're looking at between 4 to 8 feet around the lakes. And as we head into the bayou parishes, again, I do think the bayou parishes will really feel the brunt of this storm. Again, that includes Lafourche and also Terrebonne parishes there. We're looking at 5 to 10 inches of rainfall. And I do think we'll see a little bit more than that, up to 15, even 20 inches of rain. Again, this system is expected to slow down some. All that tropical moisture, all that tropical rain, it is going to cause some issues. So winds, the strongest winds in these areas, between 130 to 140 mile per hour winds with strong wind gusts of 170 mile per hour winds. That's catastrophic. We are going to see widespread damages across these areas throughout the afternoon. Storm surge now, we're looking at 8 to 16 feet, again, along our coastlines. And when we're talking about wind gusts, I do think the stronger wind gusts will be isolated along our coastal areas, again, as that eye wall makes its approach to southeast Louisiana. So as we head to St. Bernard and Plaquemines, we're looking at 4 to 8 inches of rainfall, winds between 120 to 130, and I also upped the wind gust to 150 mile per hour wind gusts, and then storm surge between 12 to 16 feet. Again, that is a lot of water pushing up on shore. And then as we head to the Mississippi coast, between 4 to 8 inches of rainfall, and then winds 45 to 55 miles per hour winds. Again, we'll be dealing with the tropical storm force winds in those areas, and then storm surge along the Mississippi coastline between 8 to 12 feet. So I do want to show you another graphic here, again, just showing the storm surge potential. We are looking at a devastating storm surge potential along these areas. That's where we think we'll see the most, especially as that eye wall makes its approach to our area.
All right, thank you very much, Michelle.
Yeah, we have plenty going on, and we've been following a lot of stuff. Already we've had all kinds of power outages, and we're not even in the thick of any of the storm yet.
Right, in some of these areas, they're getting like wind gusts of 50 miles per hour. You got to remember that's the same areas that will see gusts of almost 150 miles per hour. They've already lost power. It's unbelievable.
All right, here's some things you need to know from Jade.
What you need to know before Ida makes landfall, including an important update on the causeway, which we'll get to in a second. St. Tammany Parish has announced Abita Springs is now under a curfew until further notice. Parish leaders will be providing an update on their plan for Ida coming up at 10:15 this morning. Earlier today, the St. Tammany Parish Sheriff's Office says they may not be able to respond to an emergency during Hurricane Ida, but as soon as it is safe, the deputies will get back out. They will begin responding to those in need of help. Grocery store chain Winn-Dixie says it is trying to stay open during Hurricane Ida, but most stores are closing. Winn-Dixie issued this statement a short time ago. It reads in part, quote, "We are working hard to stock our stores and keep them open for as long as we can. We can do so safely in preparation for Hurricane Ida. With that said, we have started closing stores ahead of the storm to ensure the safety of our communities. More closures will likely occur on a case-by-case basis." And St. Charles Parish residents say if you feel like your life is in danger from Hurricane Ida, you have two options. Two shelters of last resort are open. One is at the Edward Dufresne Community Center in Luling. The other is in Destrehan at Harry Hurst Middle School on Roadrunner Lane. There won't be any supplies available at the shelter, so you will have to bring anything you need. And also an important update that just came in a bit ago, the Causeway Commission is closing the causeway at 11 a.m. due to high winds. Remember, you can get more updates along with the live interactive radar by using our app.
All right, and right now we are being joined by Jefferson Parish Councilman Dino Bonanno. Thank you for joining us this morning, Dino. This is going to be a rough one, and right now we were just talking about this here. We're already seeing, thousands and thousands of power outages, and we're not even into the rough wind yet. Do we have Dino? Okay, we just lost Dino. All right, we just lost Dino Bonanno, but. I'm sorry, Corona Control's talking to me. Okay, Meg Ferris is joining us now. Meg is on the West Bank now. Meg, you've been all over the place this morning.
Yeah, and Eric, I just heard you talking about power outages. We're over here in Harvey right now, of course, on the West Bank of Jefferson Parish, and there are two places right near where we are here at the Harvey Canal that already have power outages, and we're getting some pretty strong bands. Right now, we're not being blown around, but a few minutes ago, it was hard to even open the car doors. So yes, there are power outages, and there are two major ones here on the West Bank. Also, we've been seeing a lot of Jefferson Parish Sheriff's deputies' cars speeding with their lights on, and I talked to Jefferson Parish Public Information. He was saying that they're just doing that for visibility. There's nothing wrong right now, so if you see that or hear that in your neighborhood, nothing major is happening right now. They just do that so that they're very visible. But the reason we came over here, remember, Eric, last hour we were over by the London Canal in Lake Terrace on the East Bank over by UNO to talk about the upgrades since Katrina. So we decided to come over here to the West Bank where there have been major upgrades. The flood wall, because there were issues with the system, and this was built after Katrina. They're T-walls, not I-walls, so it's much more structurally sound over here. They're higher, average height of 15 feet. And you may remember you're hearing people saying that it was going to top, but they can plan for that. They believe this is not going to top the surge that's coming in, and that the height of these flood walls were recently elevated at a cost of $23 million. So they believe that they are going to be able to sustain all this, and that minor overtopping, it's set up to do that. Here comes a feeder band, and that they can handle that. So we're just trying to show some people some of the areas that have been changed since Katrina, because we've been talking about anxiety all morning. And so we came over here, and so far on the West Bank, as we've been driving around, photographer Riggins and I, things look okay. We haven't seen any major flooding or pooling of water anywhere. Of course, the streets are just as quiet as can be. You see a stray person every now and then. We saw some National Guard people walking around. They didn't look like they were staged. They looked like maybe they were getting ready to be staged. But so far, everything over here looks good. But of course, we haven't gotten into the worst part of it yet, Eric.
All right, thank you very much, Megan. We now do have Councilman Dino Bonanno from Jefferson Parish on the line with us. First of all,
All right, we see those. All right, so it sounds like in general you don't have any major concerns. You guys are going to take the causeway, guys, because of the 11 o'clock for wind. But other than that, it doesn't sound like you have Carlton, do for show. Thank you so much for joining us.
Not for the structure, guys. We may lose some equipment. We might lose.
And a little while ago, we did talk with
Ghassan
Korban about the pump situation.
Structurally, the bridge should make it, but before
are
we
working
do
out
allow
of the 99 pumps.
The
one thing he did say that was very important is that turbine number 4, that big generator, is working.
Yeah, he also said something that we've heard him say many recent storms, that this amount of rain, no system can handle this, which I think is always scary for people to hear, because in the best case scenario, he's basically saying we are going to see some flooding. And
the thing is, even if it stretches over a long period of time, if you get that much rain just pounding and pounding and pounding, it's going to be trouble. So anyway, here's part of the interview we had with Ghassan Korban.
We have 96 pumps working out of the 99.
And that is, excuse me, Ghassan, that is troubling to a lot of people that 3 pumps are out, especially if we get the kind of rain that we're talking about. Because would you call these critical pumps?
Well, two of them are less critical, only because I say that a lot of cases where we have multiple pumps in a given station, hardly ever we run them all at the same time. The number exists for redundancy, so we may lack slight redundancy in two situations. The one that obviously a little bit more concerning, especially for that's in the DPS 12, because it's a one-station pump. And there's a built redundancy in that area where the canals actually are interconnected, and whatever isn't we won't be able to pump with the DPS 12. The water will flow toward other canals, and the water is directed to DPS 6, which has we have 14 working pumps in that station. Yeah. So we're confident that we will handle that. Now, keep in mind that the intensity of this rain is going to make some of this irrelevant, to be honest with you, because it's going to overwhelm the system regardless whether
Good morning. This is WFAA meteorologist Kaylee Dion with an update on Hurricane Ida as it nears the southeastern Louisiana coast. Here's a live look from I-10 in Lake Charles. You can see as far to the west as Lake Charles, waves are already starting to be a problem. Cars should not be probably out there at this point. We're going to look around other locations here. Some of these locations we know, others not so much. Where is this at this point? Do we know this one? This is a shot from downtown New Orleans as the storm is still about 40 miles to the south. Still, rainfall is a big impact, as well as winds already starting to pick up. Here's a live look from Biloxi, Mississippi. You can see the waves pushing on shore here at this point, so there will be some storm surge there as well. We'll go over the peak storm surge for some of these locations, but I want to start with a look at the radar here as the storm inches closer to the Louisiana coast. Right here is Grand Isle, Louisiana. So the actual eye itself is going to just jog just to the south and to the west of Grand Isle. And I don't really know how to pronounce the Port Fourchon. I might be mispronouncing that. That's just to the southwest here. That it looks like it's going to make a direct landfall there here within the next half hour to 45 minutes, I would assume here. Very strong eye wall. The one good news that we're seeing as the hurricane hunters are going into the storm is that it looks like the strengthening has kind of leveled off a little bit as it approaches the coast. It's still a very dangerous storm, but it was continuing to intensify, and now that's kind of leveled off a little bit. So here's the latest update as of 10 o'clock. 150-mile-per-hour winds with gusts up to 185 miles per hour. It's moving to the northwest at about 13. So each update that we've seen every hour, it's slowing up a little bit. So it was at 15 miles per hour and 14. Now it's at 13. It is about 85 miles south of New Orleans. That's the exact update there, the center of the storm. But the outer bands and the wind field has already been impacting that. There will be major hurricane strength winds that reach all the way up toward Baton Rouge before it starts to weaken. It will weaken quickly once it interacts with land, but it will continue to have tropical storm strength into northern Louisiana and central Mississippi, and then tropical depression strength all the way up into the Tennessee Valley. This storm is going to cause problems well inland to the mid-Atlantic states with severe weather and flooding. I want to look at our timecast and show you as it moves on shore. We'll stop it there, and you can see later this evening it's going to be the heart of this. It's going to be tomorrow morning, tomorrow early afternoon before we see images of the impact of what this storm is going to do today, because a lot of us won't be able to get there. So responders won't be able to get to some of these locations because of the catastrophic damage that is going to be, unfortunately, happening with this storm as it continues to move inland. Rainfall, heavy rainfall, and severe weather possible all the way up to the tip of southern Illinois before it jogs to the north and east along the Ohio River Valley. Here's some of the rainfall totals. We've talked about this, 10 to 15 inches possible. So you're combining storm surge, the rainfall totals, and the wind, and all of that together is why this is going to be a storm that we don't forget. And I just pray and have thoughts and prayers with the people that are in southeastern Louisiana. But 5 to 10 inches of rain will reach all the way up into the northern parts of the state of Mississippi and to the northwest edge of Alabama, and then up to 5 to 8 inches of rainfall up toward Nashville, which they've been in the storylines the last couple of weeks because of flooding. It's very saturated in many of these locations. So what that means and why that's important is because we are going to see winds that are tropical storm force winds all the way up into some of these locations in Alabama and Mississippi. And with very saturated ground, that's going to allow trees and power lines to go down much easier. So just it's going to cause major power outages. Here's where we are right now. If you look at this, the scale, category 4, 130 to 156 mile per hour winds. It's 150 mile per hour winds right now as it approaches the coast. And I want to talk about some records with the state of Louisiana. So if you look at this, strongest hurricane by wind speed to hit Louisiana since the 1800s. So if you look at the landfall wind speeds, I've got Ida on there at 150 miles per hour. Katrina made landfall in 2005 with 125 mile per hour winds at landfall. And Last Island, which hit in 1856, had 150 mile per hour winds in the state of Louisiana. Now, there's been 4 continental hurricanes that have hit the continental U.S. since records began back in 1851 that had 155 miles per hour or larger anywhere in the U.S., but just Louisiana. That's the update for you. So I wanted to look again at the satellite and radar as it gets closer. The worst conditions are going to be in the eye wall. The northern eye wall is now getting closer to locations just southwest of Grand Isle, but that's going to be where you see the strongest wind speeds, the gusts up to 185 miles per hour. That's where we're watching for that. But if we wind it back out and look at some of the winds we're seeing at this point, is we've got about 48 miles per hour, and that's going to be just to the north of Grand Isle. If we go up toward New Orleans, we've got 41 miles per hour, out toward Biloxi, 26. And we looked live at Biloxi, 31 mile per hour winds in Gulfport, Mississippi right now, and Slidell at 32 miles per hour. That's where this portion of the storm is going to be where we're seeing the higher wind speeds. 150 plus mile per hour winds as the storm continues to move north, reaching all the way up past Baton Rouge. That's why we're saying major hurricane strength winds are going to be well up toward the coast, the state line of Mississippi, 105 to 150 farther north. As the storm makes landfall, we talk about storm surge, and the max storm surge 10 to 16 feet, which we'll look at here in just a moment. So what does that actually mean? Well, you have a storm that's moving at 13 miles per hour with winds up to 150, gusts up to 185. So that's going to push the ocean toward the shore, and the shore is not moving. So the water really has nowhere to go, so it just kind of piles up. And that's where you're going to see 10 to 16 feet in regards to storm surge. And then if you look at the red there, that even includes New Orleans, that's going to be 7 to 12 feet in storm surge. So we went through a lot of information here as the storm inches closer. I mean, we are just on the brink of that eye wall reaching land. So we've got 150 mile per hour winds with gusts up to 185. Again, going to be a record storm for the state of Louisiana and a rapid intensification. I mean, it was a Category 2 storm at 11 o'clock last night. It is now a strong Category 4 on the brink of Category 5. So that is a rapid intensification, if that's the definition. The pressure is 933 millibars. The tighter the pressure, the stronger the storm, and the lower that pressure gets. But at least we're seeing that pressure kind of level off, which means we're not going to see much in the way of strengthening. But we will continue to keep you updated on all of our social platforms and, of course, on digital as this storm continues to get closer to the southeastern Louisiana coast.
Down on our coast, but we're also going to have this trailing moisture, so bands of rainfall are going to continue not only this afternoon but tonight. We're probably still going to have some rain around tomorrow, and that's why we're really concerned with what is going on with regard to the flooding potential, not just with storm surge, but also with a rain. And I just have a friend who's staying on the North Shore just texted me and said it seems like it's getting bad up here. So you are starting to see some of those outer bands really kick on the North Shore. Winds up there gusting anywhere between 30 to probably 40 to 50 in a few spots. But boy, it's starting to pick up. And that Grand Isle side has not reported in a while. I can guarantee it's a lot faster than 74 mile per hour wind gusts. We just talked to that official from Jefferson Parish, and they said they were clocking over 120 down there in Grand Isle. 56 is what it's gusting to at the lakefront, 29 Raceland. These are all going to be increasing, and I could still hear things rumbling outside. It's only going to get worse from here on out. So the overall wind threat has really not changed. 160 mile per hour wind gusts possible down along the coast, 110 to 130 closer to Houma, Thibodeau, and up along the river. We'll be closer to 100 in New Orleans, and then up on the North Shore we're dealing with about 82, perhaps over 100 mile per hour wind gusts later this afternoon, and especially later this evening going into tonight.
Peyton, thank you very much. And now let's get back out to Plaquemines, where Candace Charles is standing by for us.
Yeah, I'm really glad I'm not outside right now, folks. You can kind of hear some of the wind just next to the window here. It's pretty loud. I'm in the EOC right now. As you can see, these folks are working hard. They're getting prepared to help all the folks who really need it, who are still here, and those who are actually away and planning on coming back home. Now have Parish President Kirk Lepine. Now, I know you guys have been prepared for this for the last couple of days. What are your biggest concerns at this point?
Our biggest concerns are always on Highway 23 in the middle part of our parish, where our low-lying levees are, give us a bit of a trouble areas. We continue to watch them and monitor those. That cuts off our commerce on Highway 23, which it doesn't allow people back and forth. Highway 39 on our east bank of our parish, from the White Ditch area to Phoenix, is also doesn't have a back levee, and that water inundates and stays in there. So if this track continues to move quickly, as we see, and we hope that it stays on that water will probably come in, but when it turns around, we hope that water pushes out.
Definitely a lot of hopes here. I know you talked about the highways a few times. I know it's hard to tell how many people have evacuated, but you did mention that it was pretty crowded on the highways, right?
Yes, we ordered an evacuation starting Friday at 3 o'clock. We upped that on Saturday. We moved more north with that mandatory evacuation. We did see a steady line of vehicles moving up through the parish, and we were very hopeful that people heeded our warning, and we're confident we got a good many of our residents to safety.
Now, for those who didn't stay behind for whatever reasons, what advice would you give to those folks?
Well, it's here, guys. It's here. It's coming. I'm getting reports down in the Venice area and the Empire area. Some of my residents that stay who are in touch with me, and there's winds over 100 miles an hour. The water's coming in. It's pushing in a little bit. So it's coming north. So that means it's coming up to the Belle Chase area and the East Bank area. So our residents who stayed, be prepared for some long hours of wind and rain, and I hope you're in place. And after this, electricity will go out. We've had a report about 7,400 of our residents already out of power. So once this passes and the wind subsides, it's going to be very hot. So we want our residents to know it's going to get uncomfortable.
That's a lot of folks to be out of power. If all those folks are still here. Now, you guys will be having a meeting here shortly. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the plans you guys have going ahead?
We'll be meeting at 10:30. There's a weather call. Also, we'll be meeting with our department heads, strategizing when we can get out there as our quickest moment to do assessments, recovery. We will not send anyone out until the weather or the wind subside. So right now it's just a waiting mode and trying to get a plan in place.
Now, for those that did evacuate, can you tell them anything about recovery efforts? I know you mentioned this is going to take quite a bit of time to assess and everything, but anything you could tell those folks that have evacuated?
We're going to be out there as quick as we can. The sheriff's office and I will work in conjunction, but people's safety is paramount. So we want to make sure that it's a safety conditions before we let anybody back in, or we're able to get to places that we need to get to. So we want our residents to know we're doing the best job that we can, and we'll be open for business as soon as we can.
I love the positivity. Definitely a lot of positivity here. If you give anybody just the last note of positivity, I love to get some positivity right now for folks. What can you say to them?
Look, keep your chin up. We've been through this before. We went through Katrina. This is the anniversary of Katrina today. I joked with Tommy Tucker on WWL that I want to skip the 29th from now on and go straight from the 28th to the 30th. And actually tomorrow is the anniversary of Isaac. So those three storms have done a number on Plaquemines Parish. But look, our residents are resilient. Our residents are the best people in the world, and they'll be back, and they'll be bigger and stronger than ever.
I love it. Thank you so much, Kirk. Thank you all so much for working so hard. We really do appreciate you guys. As it was mentioned, please stay strong. We are all resilient. We're going to get through this, you guys. For now, reporting in Plaquemines Parish, I'm Candace Charles, Eyewitness News.
All right. Excuse me. There's a news conference going on in St. Tammany Parish, and that's where we're headed next.
That's why we're waiting for, that's Parish President Mike Cooper. They're getting ready to give some updates on St. Tammany Parish.